good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Board of Commissioners meeting this morning. We appreciate all those who are joining us in the boardroom, and we also, on behalf of the commissioners, appreciate everyone who's joining us virtually now and as the meeting proceeds. This is the financial time of year. We have rather a quite extensive financial budget, a lot of discussions. Hopefully, we'll work through that progressively. But just as a heads up, that's going to be the majority of our conversation this morning. So with the call to order, I see on the agenda that I've been assigned prayer this morning, and then after that, we'll have a pledge of allegiance by Commissioner Lutz, and then I'll have a roll call by Clerk Fenny. So all those in the boardroom who would like to join us in prayer this morning. Heavenly Father, as we once again come to you this early morning, we come to praise you and thank you for the day you've given us. We thank you once again for the renewed mercy and grace that you provide each day according to your word. We thank you for our nation, and we thank you for the blessings you've given us, and we pray for all those who are being persecuted as people. But yet, Lord, we pray their nations will be, their leaders to be righteous in truth in all that they do. We also pray, Lord, for our local government. We know that we are assembled this day to look at the financial affairs of the county. We pray that we make the decisions that are in the best interest of the people. We also pray for all those who are serving our country, those who are locally, who protect us. We just ask to be with them. And once again, we rise up all those who have given their families, their sons, daughters, others, that helping out, sacrifice in this country for its protection. We ask to be with them. We also ask that you're with all those in our hearts and minds that are for spirit or for health, who lost their loved ones. Many of the issues that we face today, we guide them, word, and grace. And once again, we ask you to forgive our sins and shortcomings, for I know we fall short of your glory, but yet, Lord, we know that through your Son, that our sins are forgiven. We ask all these blessings in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which is one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. Now we'll have a roll call by Clerk Fenny.
Yes, thank
Fenny.
you. Still funny, thank you.
All right.
I'm talking about. Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
Commissioner Young.
Here.
Commissioner Bardwell.
Here.
Commissioner Vaughn is absent. Commissioner Lutz.
Here.
Commissioner Cook.
Here.
Thank you. You have a forum. You may proceed. And if I may, I have another engagement at 11 as well as another meeting at 11:30. So if we're not done, Deputy Clerk Robinson is going to come in prior to that and relieve me, just so you know why there might be a switch of the clerks.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
And for all those who are listening that are aware, our chairman is in Florida, and hopefully it's sunnier there than it is here. Getting a little bit of sun, I think, so that's where he is at, and so I'm filling in vice chair this morning and just to explain what's going on. Is there anything to add to the agenda this morning? Not that we need anything else? Maybe updates?
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
Support.
Moved by Commissioner Young and supported by Commissioner Cook to approve the agenda as presented. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, our agenda is adopted this morning. So previous meeting minutes, we have two sets to approve. The first one is October 24th, 2024. Was there any corrections or additions to that before a motion for approval? Hearing none, is there a motion?
Make a motion, we move to approve the October 24th, 2024 regular meeting minutes and the November 5th, 2024 special meeting minutes.
Support.
Moved by Commissioner Cook, supported by Commissioner Young to approve October 24th, 2024 meeting minutes as presented. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, that set of minutes have been approved. And the next set was a special meeting November 5th, 2024. Is there any additions or corrections to that?
I believe a motion to approve both of those at once.
That is great, because I
Thank you.
wondered about that.
Thank you.
Just in case.
Thank you.
I didn't spell it out, and I just used the 24th, so that's why.
Thank you for double checking.
And the next item is brief public comment period for any of the agenda items. We offer an opportunity for anyone virtually or in the boardroom to comment on any of the agenda items. We do limit it to 3 minutes for brevity, and we do have an extended public comment at the end, which is 5 minutes, which can be, either one can be extended by the majority of the board, depending on the circumstances. So is there any brief public comment this morning on the agenda item? Not seeing or hearing any. All right. We let the minutes show that we offered public comment this morning. We didn't receive any. We always appreciate it when we do. There wasn't a consent agenda to approve, so we're going to move right into new business. And the first item on our new business is Rescue Task Force Tactical Vest Purchase, which is Steve Anderson, the Emergency Services Director, will be presenting.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning, Deputy Anderson.
So I was able to obtain $20,000 to buy rescue task force equipment, so we were going to purchase ballistic vests. This would be for the team members for the local police departments and the fire departments that go in and remove the victims from an active assailant event. So this is a 100% reimbursed grant, and I'm asking permission to purchase the vest from Spartan Armor Systems in the amount of $19,418.40. If you look at the quotes that I got, their vest is actually a little bit better quality, it has a higher rating, and we were able to obtain more 24 vests as opposed to 20 and 10. So, and we've used Spartan before as well, so just looking for permission to keep that project moving forward. And for the adjustment to make the purchase as well as first budgetary.
What'd you say the amount was again?
$19,418.40.
Any further questions for Steve?
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the tactical vest purchase for the cost of $18.40 from Spartan Harmony as presented by Steve Anderson, Emergency Service Director. Also to approve the necessary budget amendment to facilitate the purchase. This project is 100% reimbursable.
Support.
Moved by Commissioner Lutz and supported by Commissioner Young to approve the tax cost of $19,418.90 from Spartan Armory as presented by Steve Anderson, Emergency Services Director, and also to approve the necessary budget amendment to facilitate the purchase. This project is 100% reimbursed. Any further discussion? Hearing or seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. Motion is approved.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Steve. As we move forward on new business, item number 2 is the appointment of Ed Dawkins to the new Material Management Planning Committee for the ERG Environmental, and Mike Miller, Director of Building and Grounds and Recycling, will be presenting.
Good morning, Commissioners. As you are aware, we have to have a new material management plan. Part of that plan is we have to have a materials management committee. So the 4 counties, Tuscola, Huron, Sanilac, and Lapeer, are gathering members. One of the members that we need to fill is a position called a managed material vendor. And basically a managed material is anybody who generates some type of a waste. So Ed Dawkins is from ERG Environmental, and he is our hazardous waste contractor. He's worked with the county. He's worked with all 4 counties probably for the last 10 years. And we, at our last regional meeting, we decided that we were going to appoint So from whatever area the person was coming from, that board of commissioners would appoint those people. Ed is not in any of our areas, he's actually down towards Detroit, but he qualifies because he does provide services to the planning area. So I'm gonna have Tuscola County approve him, and I'm asking you to approve him to the board. It is a 5-year term, and I believe it is starting today, I believe it's written.
So how long is that term? For 5 years? So it will expire December 31st? Or will it, like, I don't know what the bylaws are, so.
They don't have bylaws yet.
Okay,
So they have, once the committee's formed, they have to write their bylaws.
okay,
So, but the appointment according to the statute is a 5-year term, and then after 5 years, then they begin a staggered term.
because we would be hopeful that those expiration dates would end at the same time for all of the seats, not sporadically throughout the year, because of tracking, that would be somewhat difficult.
Well, our county's only gonna track our appointments.
Okay, it
So
would still be
I can confer with the other counties to try to
Okay.
make it all to end on the 31st.
when they do those
Oh.
bylaws, or at least so they all, even though they might start at staggered times to maybe expire,
I'll-
year end, or all March 31st, or all June 30th. That would be, I think, most helpful for the clerks involved in that situation, that would be
That's a good-
tracking.
It's a good point, yeah, I'll get with them and see if we can arrange that.
Okay,
Have it all end at 5 years on the 31st.
yeah, however that's gonna work, it's just tracking sporadic ones mid-year, it will unfortunately probably get missed.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so perfect, thank you, Mike, I
Thank you.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Mike?
Mr. Chair, I move to appoint Ed Dawkins to the new Material Management Planning Committee for the ERG Environmental to fill the seat for the Waste Division Representative, which is a 5-year term according to the state statute. This appointment would begin effective November 14th, 2024.
Support.
Moved by Commissioner Lewis and supported by Commissioner Cook to appoint Ed Dawkins to the new Materials Management Planning Committee for ERG Environmental to fill the seat for the Waste Planning Committee for Waste Planning Committee, Division Representative, which is a 5-year term according to the state statute. This appointment will be effective November 14th, 2020. Any other discussion? How does, I'm just curious, because it's such a distance for Mr. Dawkins, how does that committee function? Where do they gather?
Well, like I said, the committee's not actually all seated yet, we haven't even had a first meeting.
Okay.
So, it's gonna be a 17-member committee by the time it's all said and done. And, once they're all appointed, and we're still missing a couple of seats to fill. Once we have everybody, I'm hoping to, I don't know if we'll get it done this year, but the very first part of January. And then they have to set their own bylaws, how they're gonna meet, the time they're gonna meet, the day they're gonna meet, that'll all be up to that committee to decide. Because they'll have to pick a chair or vice chair. So,
And just a follow-up question, what does Ed Dawkins do now?
he is the vice president of the ERG, and they are a hazardous waste company. They're the ones that come and do the clean out of our chemicals and paint stuff that we collect.
Any other questions? Hearing no other questions, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion is approved.
Thank you.
And item number 3, the farm waste bid opening. Be Mike Miller again, Director of Building and Grounds, to walk us through that.
So last year you did a 1-year extension with Schreiber Farms, so that is coming to an end this year. I put it back out to bid. We only had one return, and that was from Schreiber Farms. Their bid is $210 per acre. We are approximating there's 50 tillable acres there, and our current price is $155 per acre. And Brian is farmed that land probably, last 15 years? So he's worked with us a long time, and we've really never had much issues with Brian, and I would recommend that we just accept his bid.
So Mike, the 2024 rep was 150.
155 is what we're at right now.
And is this just a 1 year?
Oh, I'm sorry, no, this is a 3-year.
So the motion will need to be corrected to reflect that prior, because the motion is for the 2025 season. So it would be for 25, 26, and 27.
Correct.
So if we could have 25 through 2027 seasons, would that be correct?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Miller.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Is there a motion to move forward?
I move to approve the bid received by Schreiber Farms for the farming of the land at Luder Road and Deckerville Road at $210 per acre for the 2025 through 2027 seasons. Support.
Moved by Commissioner Cook and supported by Commissioner Luke to approve the bid received by Shelby Farms for the farming of the land at Luder Road and Deckerville Roads at $210 per acre for the 2025 through the 2027 seasons, 3-year term. Excuse me. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you.
All right, once again, moving forward to number 4. This is the 2023 cost allocation presentation. Stephanie Farrell from MGT Consultant will be offering the presentation. Richard?
Good morning.
Morning.
I just want to verify that my screen is visible for everyone.
Yes.
Okay. Hi, I am Stephanie Farrell. I am the senior consultant with MGT Impact Solutions. We've been doing the cost allocation plan for the County of Tuscola for many years now. We just completed the fiscal year 2023 cost plan, which is due to the state by November 30th in order to use the calculated allocations on fiscal year 2025 federal grant funding programs. The purpose of the cost allocation plan is to identify those centralized costs of the county that can be allocated to benefiting departments, programs, and funds, and then use county financial policies to recover those costs back to the general fund. For federally funded programs, such as the Title 4D Child Support Cooperative Reimbursement Program, we follow the guidelines established in 2 CFR Part 200 to ensure that we are following approved methodologies and allocating only allowable costs. For Tuscola County's cost allocation plan, we identify multiple departments as central service costs to allocate through the plan. We identify depreciation on central use buildings, on equipment that is used by central service departments. We identify the cost of professional services, the controller's office, treasurer's office, IT operations, building and grounds, courthouse security, and the costs that are incurred for liability insurance and sick and vacation payouts, which are all centralized costs within the county. This is a sample of the types of statistics we use to allocate those costs that are deemed equitable, fair, and easy to replicate from year to year. So the assigned square footages of departments within the county building and other buildings, number of phone lines, number of transactions posted to the general ledger, dollars of operating expenses, number of full-time employees, number of computers and other devices, and number of vehicles insured. For the grant and millage funds this year, we identified sort of a mixed bag of trends. Some allocations increased and some decreased. We're coming out of the COVID-19 disruption to patterns. So a lot of things are sort of just leveling out, coming back to pre-COVID allocation standards. So that means some are going up, some are going down. There weren't any significant large swings that we noticed that we felt the need to bring attention to, with one or two small exceptions. Health department, we see increased 31%. Mosquito control increased nearly 30%. You should have all received a document that looks like this, multiple pages. It provides you with a breakdown of, along the left-hand side, the central service departments. Along the top, the receiving departments, so those funds, departments, and programs that we allocate costs to using those statistics previously mentioned. The top set of rows are from the 2023 cost allocation plan. The middle set is last year's 2022 cost plan. And at the bottom, you'll see the calculated variances. This document will help you identify any questions you may have about why there were large changes in any allocations. The couple of significant variances that we did want to mention. There was a change in GASB accounting standards for GASB 96 and 87. These relate to capital lease assets. So building leases, leases on equipment, and for GASB 96, it's specifically subscription-based IT assets. So long-term software maintenance agreements, those types of things. These leases now are calculated slightly differently within your financials. And we represent that differently in the cost plan as well. In the past, these types of costs would have been identified at the department level. So specifically with IT equipment asset or IT assets, those would have been identified as costs allocated from IT. Now we identify those costs within the equipment depreciation schedule, and building leases, rents, we identify within the building depreciation schedule. So you will see increases in allocations from those two departments, but they aren't an added cost that we're allocating. We're just moving where it is in the plan this year. So for the allocations of building and equipment depreciation, you will see increases in all departments because of that. Legal services, your costs went down significantly in 23, so your allocations went down. That is represented across the board again, with most departments seeing a reduced allocation from the legal services department. Sick and vacation payouts, what we've found in many counties and other clients across the country is a lot of employees were leaving, retiring in 20 and 21 into 22 even. By 23, that's leveled out. There's not a lot of people leaving anymore, so we've got payout decreases. So the allocations being allocated as sick and vacation payouts also decreased. Many departments saw that decrease as well. The negative values you see there as the allocations to prosecutor and dispatch, because of the way we calculate these amounts and the way they are charged to the departments, the cost plan allocates sick and vacation payouts to all departments based on FTEs because of policy that there's no way to ensure which department the employee was in when they earned the benefit, and therefore the benefit must be spread across all departments equally. However, when there is separation from the county, the payout is charged to the department they are leaving from. So the cost plan balances that with credits, which is why you'll see those two negative numbers. Your Title 4D recoveries for 2023, which will be applied to the 2025 Title 4D billings that my colleagues complete each year for your friend of the court and prosecuting attorney. There was a slight decrease. So the calculation of the 4D recoveries is we take the total amount we identified as the allocations, and that's the first 3 rows. We then have to do a carry forward calculation, which compares the amount we identified this year to the amount identified 2 years ago. That would be the basis for the billings that were done in 23. And we add that difference to our proposed costs, which is how that final proposed cost number is identified. And then the county receives 66% back through the federal grant. So you'll be receiving about $216,000 in federal recoveries in 2025 through the 4D grant. That is approximate. There are some other factors that are applied during the monthly billings, but that's the trend that we're on. Any questions?
Commissioners, any questions on the presentation? Well, it was certainly extensive information. I was just looking at the book and I was trying to follow along, but I don't think what you presented is in the book, or at least I couldn't locate it. It's an immense amount.
You're right. What I presented is a summary of what you will see in the book. Let me brief. If you give me 1 second, I will pull up the book and give you a outline of how to read the book.
There'll be a quiz tomorrow.
Oh, I wouldn't do that to anybody, I promise. Well, maybe Clayette, but she knows the answers. When you received the book, the cost plan is laid out, brief introduction. This is the certification that was signed, agreeing that all of the costs represented in the plan match your audited expenditures for fiscal year 2023. How to read a cost plan is useful information if you really need to fall asleep. The summary pages describe each of the central service departments, those departments that I identified earlier, and each function that we identify within that department as a cost pool in which we identify costs incurred by that department that have a similar purpose or benefit a similar group of people or the similar group of departments and funds. And then in the middle, the statistic that we use to allocate those costs. This summary schedule is what was presented to you. This is just the 23 schedule, which is that top set of rows on the summary document you received. Identifying the central service departments along the left and the receiving departments along the top. Each department has 4 sections. The first section is a narrative, which provides information on what costs we are including, why they are allowable, and how we allocate them. The second part of each section is the costs that we've identified. So here's the building depreciation costs we're identifying for each building and that DOS storage building lease. Third section is incoming costs. So because of the way the cost plan works, it's what we call a double step down method. Each of the central service departments allocates its costs to all of the benefiting departments, including other central service departments. Those become incoming costs for further allocation. The third schedule for each department is the individual allocation details for each department's cost pools. So for the courthouse, these were the total costs we identified to allocate to the courthouse, the square footage of each occupant department, and how they are, and the cost that they receive in their allocation. The second allocation, I get this question all the time. The second allocation is the allocation of those incoming costs that were from other central service departments. And the final schedule for each department is a summary showing the receiving departments along the left each of the cost pools we identified costs for, and the sum of allocations for each receiving department. And that repeats for each department.
Will that explain it fully?
Yes, fully.
Thank you, Stephanie. Please keep in mind, we just received this book, the commissioners this morning, I believe, and it's another thing. So, are there any other questions from the commissioners? None? Client, your review, if you've had an opportunity to review it, anything that flagged in with MGT for as long as I can remember?
Well, actually, the fiscal personnel analyst kind of been doing more of a deep dive on it this year, but we've kind of been working together on it, so I don't know if she has anything major to report on it. I didn't see anything when I glanced through it that was abnormal or earth-shattering or anything.
Okay. I'm assuming the courts are pleased as well. All right, well, that's all, pretty much covers it all. If there's no further discussion, is there a motion to approve?
Mr. Chair, I move to accept and place on file the 2023 cost allocation plan as presented by Stephanie Farrell, MGT Consultant.
Support.
Moved by Commissioner Cook and supported by Commissioner Young to accept and place on file the 2023 cost allocation plan as presented by Stephanie Farrell, MGT Consultant. Are there any further questions this time? Hearing or seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, report is approved, be placed on file. Thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you very much, gentlemen and ladies. Bye, Clayette.
Thanks.
All right, well, thank you for that. Pause there, just asked a few questions. Moving on to number 5, we have a 10-year review for projections with no transfers in or out. And Clayette, interim chief accountant, will walk us through.
So, Commissioner, before I retired, I presented this information to look back and to look forward on where we're at. So I've updated it based on the 2023 audit final numbers and also based on kind of what's happening in 24 so forth, so far as we get into the year end. So I wanted you to take a picture. So the 2 snapshots that I have today, this one is based on the assumption if no money was coming into the general fund from other sources such as the indirect costs and no money was leaving the fund, which, you know, obviously that's never going to happen. We have to do the transfer ins and transfer outs. But I thought it's a good picture to look at. How does the general fund operate on its own without any outside things that can happen throughout the year? So what it's showing is all the revenue coming in is revenue that you're going to see for operations of the general fund. And the expenditures are the true expenditures that are happening within the general fund without the transferring any money. And then I take it forward based on, and Stephanie had mentioned too, we're kind of getting out of that little phase of, you know, the ARPA money coming in and the shutdowns and everybody getting started again. So you see those few years, and I did put notes in there as well to keep that in mind, that things are gonna start leveling out, you know, be it good or bad, things are gonna level out now. Money's been allocated, money's been spent. We're getting back to what does it really mean? What kind of tax money are we getting in? What kind of other revenue sources for the charges services that we get in? And as you can see, we're getting back to a more of a pattern of revenue growth being much smaller than our anticipated expenditure growth. Which, if you look back, it's kind of been the same somewhat pattern. I used to joke with the former controller administrator, Hopeland, that we're always looking for pennies from heaven. Because at this run that you see, there's no way you can sustain operations without other sources of funds coming in one way or another. So it kind of gives you a snapshot of what would happen and where we would be, and you know, even into it shows a deficit of 347,000. You know, what would you do, worst case scenario, to cut that kind of money from your general fund budget? So I wanted to lay that picture out as well as the next item. I don't know if anybody's got any questions on that one.
With the pleasure of the board.
Before you retired, you said 2026 was going to be the year. This year you haven't changed your mind, have you?
I have not, that number that I gave you when I left is pretty close to about where we were. And if you have looked back into your books at the previous chart that I gave you, for kind of see those comparisons, we're still heading in that direction. I don't see where we're not heading in that direction. The things that are gonna save the day, pennies from heaven, I like to call them, would be, new wind farms. You know, potentially be in the hopper, but nothing solid, so I can't report on any of that kind of stuff. Or industry coming into the area. We know that the inflation on the taxes have been good for us, but bad for the citizens. And we know that inflation's, you know, that's gonna drop. And when that drops, the revenues will drop coming into the general fund, as well as any other tax-based operation. Which is good for the people, because they're gonna, you know, the rate of inflation that's used to calculate what you're paying in property taxes every year fluctuates and changes. It's been going up every year. It's a matter of time before it just drops. So this is just assuming status quo, nice and steady, not no spikes, be up or down happening.
So you're saying by 26, we're gonna have a shortfall of 347,000. Am I reading that right?
That's what my projections are at this time.
I really sense this is an excellent view. Of course, there's no transfers in or outs and, you know, property taxes you mentioned. I think it's 500,000 this year we're supposed to be getting, which is not a lot, but yet, looking at wind energy, which you mentioned, and Foster Swift just filed a suit against the public service. It'll most likely slow, I know, not that it wouldn't be anything realized this year anyway, but this is an eye-opener in the sense that by 2029, which is the end of all of our terms, I believe, we're close, it's 1.5 million. And we have been fortunate earlier on in situations like this that we had the wind energy money. We had to bail this out at a time when we were reducing FTEs, that's no hidden secret. And then now we had the ARPA, GSP or TGS funds, which were drawn down. As Commissioner Luch, you just identified, 347,000. Now this is, once we look into the transfers in, and more transfers out, I'm not sure how this is going to change relatively. Glad to expose that, I'm sure, but our revenues are under, if you just look at the expenditure line projected at the bottom of that, at the top of that chart line. It's incrementally increasing over the revenue. I think that's the worrisome, because I don't know where the revenue is going to come from. Now, usually when you get into that red phase there in 2026, and look, this is just projection and hypothetical. Wages and benefits are the number one cost typically, and that's where all of a sudden the circle gets drawn around the FTEs and FTE reduction. And I certainly don't want to do that. From my standpoint, I'm sure you don't want to either. So it is an eye-opener. It's something that I don't think any of us thought was not happening. We used to track this pretty prolifically on a chart. But yet, here it is again. And I'm always open to discussions on thoughts, and perhaps we've missed something in terms of revenue. Expenses are always going to creep up incrementally, and I think you had mentioned earlier in the conversation with that is that revenues are creeping up 3%. What was that? Do you remember a discussion yesterday? And no, expenses are creeping up 3%.
No,
No,
expenses are,
5%.
yeah, more like 5.
5%, revenues.
Hovering around the 2.
Okay.
And how do you figure that when you don't know Blue Cross for next year?
That's just,
So it'll be 5%.
um,
So the real eye opener too is that if you look at a $16 million budget, 5 million of that is wage. If you add the fringe on that, $10 million is your wage fringe of your $16 million general fund operation.
And that's just this year.
That's just looking at this year. I'm
Yeah.
not trying that
It's not
back.
going forward.
But obviously, you know, you want your wages to be good. We negotiate, wages go up. It's the unanticipated health insurance costs that really hits hard. Hopefully that levels off, but at least for the next couple of years, I don't see any end in sight on that. So that pushes up your cost to operate, unfortunately.
Diana, I appreciate the charts.
So I was gonna say, anybody look at this chart at a glance and see we're in trouble. Our former controller, I asked him every month for this chart, can you give us that 6 pages of figures? It's like, if you're on a Zoom meeting, you can't even see the figures because they're so small. Looking at this, you get a snapshot and a glance, we're in trouble.
Well, I did give you a book of all the rest of the,
Yes.
all the details that we'll probably reference back to as we're going through stuff today. But that kind of gives you a snapshot and an estimation based on, based on factors that we're seeing on growth and average growth from year to year.
I don't think you miss any revenue that might be coming in that you didn't think of.
We've looked, Debbie's looked, you know, departments have looked, the treasurer had a couple adjustments on our 25 revenue, which unfortunately she gave it and she took it away, so. But that's all part of everybody, all eyes on it, everybody looking at it and seeing, you know, how it affects their department revenue, what they see. We have to assume that status quo, as the department comes forward and says, oh no, we got this big thing coming down and we're gonna, you know, make a lot of revenue. The clerk has helped immensely with that on her end as well, because there's quite a bit of revenue that comes through the clerk's office through the dinner.
Just one question if I may. Is there, the expenses from 24 to 25 have quite the jump?
Yep.
Is there one thing attributable to that?
The 24 to 25 is, I believe, mostly related to the wage and fringe cost increases.
And does that include the proposed new positions for 25?
Yes, 25, well, no, 25 has the, I think, the election workers were that is 24. But no, moving forward on this is assuming where we're at today.
Not adding the ones that we're gonna talk about later, so that would potentially increase that higher?
Correct.
So thank you for that clarification. Thank you, board, for letting me ask that.
any other questions or comments related to
Like you said, 29, that's an eye opener.
And it's incrementally, I mean, just looking at the numbers, Commissioner, 347, 755, we wrote on a little more, and it was indicated we used 522,000 of our fund balance for 24. So, I mean, we have a bleed off, but we don't have the revenue projections. And this is, you know, if we had this on a single line on the chart, we would see that the revenue is below expenditure going in the future, now in the future. Something to keep in mind.
So, now, when we move to the next chart, you'll see why I did this chart. Because the next chart, which includes all your transfer ins and outs, looks much worse, obviously. But if you're using money, your bottom line is still okay, because your money coming in and your money coming out has affected what kind of reserves you've been tapping into, such as the PGS money and things like that. So the money's been there for you to use, but this kind of shows you what you have used and what's anticipated to be used if you keep on that same pattern moving forward. So this shows, obviously, in 23, the 2.4 million difference, in 24, 1.6. 25 right now, taken into consideration, I know it's low at 135, but when we go through your balance sheet, look at your PGS money, later on, you'll see that that money is pretty much dwindled down to where you got like 700,000, if that, based on whatever decisions you make here moving forward. So it will continue to grow, based on what's happening now. So obviously, it's estimated out, status quo. Similar things happening in the future. Again, with that slower revenue-based growth, expenditures still lunging forward. So I did want to just throw this out there with showing you your operations is sustaining your expenditures. It's not as bad, but you throw in the mix, you are using reserves as anticipated. We do budget the use of those monies for a reason. And eventually, those monies will be gone.
2026, isn't that far away, $2 million?
Yes. So it's air the caution, you know, keep an eye on things, pay attention, you know, just moving forward, look at that bottom line, see what's happening. And it's a good time, you know, me and Deb call it budget sweeps, in 6 months in, you know, 3 months in, 6 months in, 9 months in, should be a quarterly sweep through to see how things are settling, because some stuff doesn't hit, you know, expenses don't hit until year end, some, you know, your revenue source, your number one revenue source in the general fund, we don't start out of the gates with all that tax money in there right away. The bills go out, and then it's collected, it's a summer tax, so you gotta look at those fluctuations on what's happening at all times. Now more than ever, it's the commissioner's role in this financial, fiscal responsibility is extremely important.
Any further comments? I'm still wrapping my mind around the bottom chart for 4 million. And if everything being equal, nothing really happens going forward that's gonna bump revenue or bump expenses. And 2 million hits in 25 projected difference,
Right.
which could be more or less.
Yeah, 25 is still undecided, so we still don't know where that's going.
Be better if it was in the black.
It kind of shows you a good idea of the dependency on the general fund for other funds as well. This, you know, and then of course the general fund's dependency on getting that indirect cost is extremely important for our operations. It is the cost of, it's the cost of doing business, and we do have to take those indirect costs seriously. We do pay for a plan, we have outside people go through that and identify that cost. And that cost is identified and it's, but we have, as I discussed in our last meeting, we have reduced that in some operations, but for a reason, because if you hit them with the full indirect cost, then that fund's in trouble, nobody can do that fund. It's going back and forth, it's like a ping pong sometimes.
Well, if you strip out the PGS funds, going forward from the general fund standpoint, we saw it when Neil was here, we were questioning the 7 million, we kept looking at them, where did that come from? All of a sudden, because we came in November, December, at a 200,000 deficit, I remember the discussion, we were looking the opposite direction, all of a sudden it became very flush. Well, now we're somewhat back to reality, but yet in a sense, when I said trying to wrap my mind around this in terms of what does the board need to consider going forward, other than, monitoring, to alleviate or reduce this somewhat. And I was just also thinking about some of the state mandates, which may or may not happen, such as the septic legislation. I don't think it's going to happen now. But we do have materials management, where I sense we're going to be contributing to that at some point.
We'll get a little bit of money from the state, but it's not a lot,
Not a lot.
no.
And then,
Nothing that's gonna overcome this.
no, I mean, it's just little dents in it that would influence it. And 9/11, based on what we know today, is probably going to have to be funded at some point. We'll probably hear more about that today. So, but the revenue side, I mean, I can think of expense much easier than I can revenue. It could be side actually, so. And if the tax base, sort of gets farmland, and it starts to decline. When are you going on retirement again? Number 2? You still planning on?
Yeah. Most definitely.
Okay,
I'll be watching from afar.
all right. Okay, well, any other questions on the ins and outs? And this is the chart we're going to keep on the test.
Absolutely. I think we get a better grasp of our finances now than we did 2 months ago.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
We were somewhat struggling.
And all these charts and graphs, anything that I prepare or work for, present to the commissioners, we have an S drive, it's a shared drive, anybody in our office has access to this, including whoever, comes into this office next has access to either look at this, update it. We have a file folder called Commissioner Scenario Planning, and all the documents are in there for the use, just plug in numbers and do the assumptions or look at it, if they see anything different, if the revenue, if you guys do get, pennies from heaven, they can update this chart, of course, moving forward, you can change things, so something that if you like it, it is there, it's not like I take these things with me, they're part of the county, and as I did with some of my Copeland's charts before. Charts before me that I continue to use on the wind and things like that, so everything is in there, just so you know.
Would it be,
I already know than that now.
seeing what you were just saying, Commissioner, would it be a pleasure of the board, would you want to see this printed off or otherwise in the drive somewhere?
I would.
You would? Yeah. We could get it printed off and,
Both of these?
yes. And I was thinking, as Commissioner Young has talked about, that graph could be just as a higher level word picture, that the graph that was there, that's what you're talking about, the expense line and revenue line, even though it's. I think the relationship between the two, we're seeing it in the graph, but if that could be converted into a line graph, that might be interesting too. Anyway. Anything else on future thoughts? Okay. Very good, Clay. That tells a lot of, as we're going into 25. Now, if there's nothing else, we'll move on to number 7 going forward. Provision of government services for PGS review. Will be Debbie Babish, fiscal personal analyst, presenting.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning, Ray.
I believe you have a copy of the tracker that I'm going to be discussing. I updated this. These are expenses that we have used PGS funds for to date. If you look at the amount expensed, that total to date is $7,660,711. This includes the requests that came in for 2025 for the equipment tech and capital fund. So these have not been approved yet. So that's why I do not have a board motion in there, but this is something that you're going to be looking at and potentially approving. If they're all approved, if you look at the last page, this gives the total available remaining of the $10 million that we were funded for PGS. So it will leave you with $631,117 and PGS funds available. And that's if you approve all of the projects that have been requested.
So is that 17% that we locked down, is that money in there right now?
So this particular stuff, information that she's presenting is your balance on the unreserved, formerly known as PGS money.
Okay.
And we'll get into that balance sheet a little bit later, but this plays a part of that, on what's actually, what we've been tracking, what we started with, and what we're ending with. So that's basically just pulling that out, not
Okay.
enabling your fund balances and other kind of stuff in there, just your unreserved PTS. Formerly known as PTS.
Do you have any questions about what I presented on the tracker?
Hey, can't leave, oh,
No
I thought
questions?
you were leaving.
Long distance.
And commissioners, we started this a long time ago, as the commissioners directed us to, not a penny got spent out of there unless there was a board motion attached to it. So we started using this, so we always had that backup to show the board directed us to spend it out or use those reserves in the fund balance for these projects. So pretty soon, as you can see, this track won't exist anymore. Probably fairly shortly, probably by the end of 25, I would guess. But it brings you up to speed, it gives us history, we archive this information if anybody ever asks. Keep in mind, the $10 million was ours to spend as directed by the commissioners because it was lost revenue for the general fund. That's why it became part of our unreserved fund balance. So it was lost revenue during the pandemic that we were able to recoup on our operations at that time. So that's what we reported it as under ARPA funds. That's why you don't want to really call it ARPA anymore. ARPA monies have been spent. This is our lost revenue money assigned as directed by the board of commissioners, the $10 million.
All right, and just, because I was studying this and listening at the same time, I know it's $1.5 million, been appropriated. But the two items that you mentioned that have not been approved, just mention that one more time for me.
So we haven't approved, the request from the capital equipment fund, which I believe you do have that in your packet as well, what's been requested for projects. So in the IT department, those two items have not been approved yet. And
If they were, what would that 631 look like?
that's, if they were, that's
Oh, that's
what, yes, that's the available remaining is a 631.
Okay, I see. That answered my question.
Okay.
Any other questions for? Well, thank you once again for the reminder and
You're welcome.
it's a very interesting chart. A lot of information today. Still, good business. We're going to move down to, go to the board, number 8, 9/11 dispatch surcharge increase, John Blair's 9/11 dispatch director.
Morning, Commissioners.
Mhm.
Last week when I was before you, we spoke about other options to increase revenue of dispatch, and it was asked, would we be allowed to increase the surcharge to the state maximum of $3? And I believe at the request of Commissioner Lewis, he requested to see some numbers as a follow-up to that question. And so today I have that and a little bit better look. So if we were to just take our numbers today as they are here in 2024, in the pamphlet, the chart looks like this one. It's pretty simple.
There's no attachments in the agenda.
Okay. So I apologize for that. But I had presented the device numbers that we're dealing with today, which is currently 398,856 devices. With the revenue as it stands today at this current surcharge of $2.03, is roughly $809,678.14. And if we were to raise it through a ballot proposal for the voters, is the only way it can be done, to a state maximum of $3, that would increase the revenue to $1,196,568, with a difference of, so this would be the true answer of the increased revenue today as of November 14th, $386,889.86, which would be roughly 46% increase of revenue. This sounds great, sounds like a lot of money. So when I did a general ledger history, ending November 30th for the last 6 years, if we were to put those numbers together, that proposed, if we already had the $3 surcharge increase today, and that increase of $386,000, if we added that to our revenue as of today, it would cover our current expenditures with $46,000 left over. So even with the surcharge increase, with still 6 weeks left to go in 2024, it would almost bring us to budget neutral.
And even if you, any questions, Commissioner? So far? Even if you, the 386,000, that would be the net. As I recall on something somewhere, you wouldn't realize that, let's just say you did. When would you realize that revenue? How far in the future?
The following fiscal year, because we have to go through the state 911 committee at the state level. So we would hypothetically, if you made a motion today and we put it on a ballot sometime this year, we wouldn't collect any money until 2026.
The end of 26 or the beginning of 26?
That's what the state 911 committee would have to tell us. They have a formula.
And what would an election, we just passed our election. What would an election cost? This would be a single item, right? We'd have to take it to what would that cost?
I believe when we last spoke with Clerk Fetting, it was between 50 and 60,000.
For
A special election.
For just a special election in an off-cycle year, yeah, I would, at this point, we need plan around 50,000. If you look at holding off till 2026, that will be back into midterm cycles where that cost is already incurred. So the cost is still there, it's just going to be spent whether you place a proposal out or not.
John,
Yes, sir.
make sure I'm hearing you correctly. We're talking about $1 a month more,
Roughly, it's 97 cents.
a taxpayer.
Yes.
And to do the increase, we have to take that to the voters,
Yes,
is
we
that correct? Okay.
Yes, we do.
So it's nothing that the board can motion
The
to
only
take
thing,
care of.
correct, the only thing the board would have to do would to make a motion to move forward with ballot language, allowing the taxpayers to voice their opinion on how 911 is funded.
So I have a question. If there is another special election within the county, would that figure go down? If somebody else wanted to do an election? Sometime?
It would not. So what would happen is we are planning to have a special election in May of 2025. We have one school has already filed, one school is planning to file, and one city is planning to file if that school files. So we do have that. What happens is the county trumps all of that, so the county will front those costs, and then the entities get a discounted price. Instead of them paying their full cost to run a special election for themselves, they ride underneath the county umbrella then. So you would be saving the school or the city money, but you would not save the county money. So there is, I guess if you look at it in that way, there is a cost savings to some. You're welcome.
I think that answered my question then, because the 50,000 you're saying, basically, I was thinking, my question was gonna be, does it come out of the revenue that's being generated or that the county have to front that. But you're just saying that in the end, the county's gonna be fronting.
So this would be something funded by and paid for by the county if you were to put something on in 2025. Currently, right now, in working in the election budget, I do not have a county-wide budgeted, so I'd want to work with Clayat to get the election budget adjusted for that, if that's something that you're going to consider. I budget for a special at the local level where it wasn't at our cost. So I'd have to get that budget revised and looked at moving into 25. But that would be something that would come out of our general fund.
So we say, good.
Well, Kirk, but I'll make sure I get this right. If the school wants to do this, we pay for it anyway?
If
school
the
wants-
school goes by, so Reese Schools right now has 5 for the May. So for sure, we're gonna have a May election pertaining to Reese Schools. So if we just look at that piece of the pie, if nothing else goes on in the Reese Schools will pay for that part of that election all by themselves. Okay, so if we're administering an election for Reese School District, the school pays 100%. When the county places something on, we're higher in the hierarchy, so the cost stops at our umbrella. The school is only responsible for any cost that is above and beyond what would be for the county. So they would have a very small cost for the ballots cost from a ballot split or programming costs from a ballot split, so it reduces the cost to the school.
Maybe.
You're welcome.
I have a financial question. So this isn't a millage, this is a phone surcharge.
Correct.
Don't the commissioners have the right to vote on an increased surcharge?
The maximum they're allowed to, according to state statute, is 42 cents, which was done 19 years ago.
So now the people vote on a increase in a phone surcharge.
But, projecting into 2025, since the numbers are pretty well consistent from 2018 to current, it would be roughly 480,000 that a surcharge increase with revenue, or would increase. But that's, when I did my budget this year, we certainly stayed the same. I say I reduced it because we didn't include any, projected 7% increases on our licensors or anything that we anticipate seeing. So we've certainly cut it back. We're trying everything we can, and I want to discuss it. I have been before you several times. This has been a hot topic to me, even when we were doing the restructuring of my staff, by naming a deputy director and making her salary. Overall, that reduced my budget significantly because now she's no longer available to acquire overtime. I'm not paying her inclement weather because if it's bad, the county closes, she stays home. Holidays, right? Veterans Day, she was home just like us. Whereas if she was still on the floor, I'd be paying overtime for that. Her amount of vacation days that she earned as a supervisor is much higher than what she earns as a deputy director. So there was those cost savings there, as well as her shift premium that she was eligible for. So decision wasn't just for her to have a title. It was significantly for budgetary purposes as well as leadership purposes. So I'm doing what we can to facilitate cost reduction.
Don, can she get comp time?
I've been told that we can accrue up to 40 hours of comp. It's something neither her or I filed for.
So, John, our two scenarios are, we put it on a ballot in May, we don't put it on the ballot in May, and then someday we're gonna fund your office in the general fund.
My doomsday projection would be I would ask the board to direct me to what county you want to consolidate our services to.
The surrounding counties, are they at $3, do you know?
Yes, I have that sheet, and I presented it at one time, stand by. I came prepared for trying to answer all these questions.
And commissioners, if you want to call up to look at budget, it's on page 24 of your all funds detailed budget. It kind of shows you 23, 24, and the first draft of 25. Just for point of reference.
So this binder is all,
Operation numbers correct?
Page 24. 24 and 25.
so this binder contains all the information that we discussed between February and April of this year for the budget, millage talks, and surcharge talks. So the counties that I was given as comparables was Gratiot, Ionia, Montcalm, Sanilac, Shiawassee, and St. Joe. Out of these, 2 of them are actually a component unit of the county. So they belong to like the sheriff's office, or they're funded from the general fund themselves. The rest are standalone special revenues. And 3 of them, Gratiot, Ionia, and Montcalm are all $3. Sanilac, which has a millage, does not have their surcharge maxed out. They're only collecting 44 cents on a millage, but again, they're on the surcharge, but they do have a public safety millage for dispatch. Shiawassee is at $2.65, and St. Joe also has a millage, and they only collect 42 cents on a surcharge.
Do you ever see the state raising it more than $3?
I'm sorry.
You ever see the state raising it more than $3?
It's in discussion, I can tell you that much. It's been discussed at the director's level and with the state 911 committee to raise it because those that are at $3, are having the same troubles that we're having currently at 2 or 3. And I believe it's been at $3 for a number of years.
Circling back to the question about the increasing it through taking to the people. At the highest level, and maybe I'm missing something, let's just say it's 50,000. We'd have to spend 50,000 to get 386. Max or something, could be less. That's what it costs.
Approximately, in year 1.
Doesn't seem
And
like
then year 2, if it passed,
it.
and then year 2, you would realize the full amount. If you were looking at it that way.
Would you spend 50,000 now to get 386,000? That's the opportunity cost that the board, unless I'm saying it wrong, Commissioner Cook, from the finance perspective, I'm just trying to, you're the investment guru. Would you invest in this?
Well, the trouble is like we discussed, it's something we do now, and we don't see it for, how do we fund it? How do we stop the bleeding now? That's the problem.
My greatest concern is at spending the 50,000, putting it before the people, and it either failing or it's approved, but it's not enough. It was just a Band-Aid. So then a year, 2 years later, we'd be back before the people to find out other ways to raise the revenue to keep the doors open. And I know I spoke briefly at the last meeting about the you know, what people expect out of 911 when they call today. You know, I firmly believe we have one of the best dispatch centers in the state, certainly in the thumb. As far as everything is concerned, in my opinion, from officer safety to ambulance safety, and the collaborative efforts between law, fire, and EMS. So our 53,000 residents with dispatch, which has never been done before. It's almost insurmountable, I'll be honest.
So this would be a millage.
That is, what we're discussing right now is just the surcharge increase.
Well, I was thinking if it was a millage, you could ask for more than $1. It would carry you into year 3, 4, and 5.
You could, but this is just merely, I was asked to come back with these numbers, so if there's further discussion, we can certainly have that, but I don't want to imply that I'm asking to raise taxes again.
I have another financial observation. If you look on page 25 of your all funds, you'll see the fund balance that what is being carried right now in the dispatch fund. So it's anticipated that we're going to end 24, so I'm looking at the 24 amended budget column, a little over $500,000 in fund balance. And then in the 25 request, which is in the far right column, it shows that it's anticipated to budget the use of $129,000 of your projected $547,000. So there will be around $500,000 available in fund balance still through the year 25. So if that helps your decision making as far as it's not like they're going to be broke, but they are burning this fund balance. It's been a consistent fund balance burn over years, but they won't be broke. They will still have money for operations at least through 25. But if you look at the net of revenue appropriations fund column going across in 23, there's $162,000 use of fund balance. 24 is anticipated $421,000 use of fund balance. And then in 25, $129,000 use of fund balance. That's that fund balance burn we're talking about. It's consistent. Thank goodness he still got money there to use though. But it's a matter of time. But at least through 25, he's looking pretty solid still. As long as no major equipment breaks down or he has something major happen up there.
Well, that's to highlight the good parts is through the appropriation of government funds, we were able to complete a lot of major projects that needed to be completed and you know, knock on wood, all of our major components within that structure to keep us operational 24/7 have been replaced. We recently had a major power outage here in Caro, and our UPS system transitioned over flawlessly. They gave us almost 2.5 hours of power. So that was good money spent, good clean power. That IT was concerned about, you know, we didn't have a hiccup. You know, I tried evaluating our, in each line item over the last 6 years, year to date. You know, our revenue is down 2% from last year at the same time. Our expenditures are actually down 5% from last year at this time. But our health insurance has went up 17.25%. So, you know, when the county's speaking about personnel costs being $10 million of your $16 million budget, I certainly agree with that. I mean, my people are my greatest asset, my greatest tool, which they're also the greatest expense. You know,
So, John, do you ever see the day come in when here they ask the general fund, put some money out there?
yeah, I do.
Because if you went back to our scenario about half an hour ago, in 2 years, there may not be any general fund money to put out there.
That's correct, and I believe Clay and I are in full agreement that 26 is going to be the roughest year. I mean, this, again, we've had this conversation since February. I think we've kicked the can down the road, hoping it to get better. But as we keep discussing these budgets and the county budget and the implications, it's fair that we have a discussion because it's a fair discussion. So I believe that things need to change on some levels.
So the commissioners, and I'm gonna say, there's 4 options here, so push back. The 4 options are, of course, the dispatch raising the surcharge to the max, which we spend 50, get 386, but the 50 would be sort of amortized over, year 1, year 2, year. There's one option. Keeping in mind what Commissioner Young and others have said about 26. The next option that we have been faced with, have a millage, take it to the people. That's been suggested. That's number 2. Number 3 is the county has to appropriate some money at some point, somewhere. There's another option that could happen. And the 4th one goes back to number 3, so if the voters turn it down, there's regionalization. Some region, which is always in the background, more facets like townships and other things from the state side. So those are the 4 options. Now, how can you slow the drag, the burn rate down? And this is just one. We're looking at a whole county, so we just got one little department. Now, they probably all face this at some respect. What's the best option or the optimal decision-making series to extend the funding without having the county putting money out of the general fund? Well, there's the answer. If you had a whiteboard and sticky notes, everybody could participate in that solution, but we don't have that here. So I'm open for the pushback now because you see the handwriting on the wall, but the solutions are within those 4 somewhere, and probably maybe not. It's just delaying it. Unless it's regionalized or village. Another minute. What are your thoughts?
I'd like to go back to the $3 myself. I think it's been 50 to get the 386. I think that's the chance I'd take, that's my opinion.
Amortize that over 5 years is only $10,000 a year. Get that.
Right. I mean, I guess we'll see where we're at that point. If the voters say no, then I guess we gotta go back to the drawing board.
The way our expenses are going, I'm afraid the drawing board could be going.
It could be,
There's nothing to buy.
it could be.
I didn't consider a no on the surcharge, but yes, you're right, it could be a no, and then would you go out and attempt a millage at that point?
Well, if they turn down the surcharge, I'm sure they're gonna turn down the millage. But
Well, the options would be then that's regionalized, and whatever that would mean to the public, I don't know, if they see any difference, usually.
Would it be something to consider, Director Ramirez, if we were going to invest the money in an election and go through that effort? Is it a possibility to put a question on regarding the surcharge as well as a question on regarding a small millage?
I don't know that answer.
Okay.
I mean, I'm certainly have been beating my head off the wall to find a solution.
Well, I'm just thinking if
That
you're
is
investing,
possible on one ballot. Two questions.
that's my
Oh, I'm
question,
sorry.
and that might be a question for the attorney. But if you're going to invest the money and the surcharge is potentially a short term, and we might be looking at both anyway, I don't know if it's the right answer. I'm just asking it has been considered and or if it would be a possibility, since you're investing that money
Right.
to do both.
The state has already seen some regionalizations of dispatch centers. We've also seen dispatch centers that have went to basically daytime only 911 centers. So once it becomes a 6 o'clock changeover, everybody walks out, the phones are then forwarded to another county to process their 911 calls and non-emergency calls. The risk of that is you lose your state funding at that point. But this is, again, a topic that many directors are having.
We sort of saw the impact of that when the ambulance service cut back their hours and then if the dispatch cut back their hours, I think we can see a public outcry at some point. Especially if they're really setting events because of it.
Well, I think we certainly realized that in the contract negotiations. We certainly recognized it then.
What's the pleasure of the board? I appreciate the clerk's clarity on this. That probably should be looked into with the board's pleasure, just to see what that means.
Yeah, I say we see if that's a possibility. And then I think that, I mean, like she said, I think it's, if you're spending the money, you might as well get the most one for, that you're gonna spend. That's just my opinion.
Well, that's a great opinion. I appreciate that. Maybe we all do, but what is it that the board, what do you want to walk away from this morning, this decision? What is it? Are you thinking of approving, moving forward with the surcharge, or hesitating and exploring?
Again, I'm just speaking for myself. I hate to see us get in, because like Director Ramirez says, that's just a Band-Aid. And if we're gonna go in front of the people, I would almost rather have them have a choice of, a permanent fix or a Band-Aid.
So postpone this decision on surcharge till we get further information.
Again, I'm just wondering.
I'm just summarizing what
Yeah.
I'd like to
makes
get,
sense. Why would you go for a surcharge and go back?
Right.
I'd like to get the legal opinion. I think like Cook says, I think we need to maybe get a legal opinion if we could put both on there.
What is the date we have to have to make a decision?
The calendar has not been released, but it would be probably to be safe by the end of January. The filing deadline should be with the second week of February, right off the top of my head, but if you had a decision by the last week of January, that would be safe for sure.
I would say we spend some more time thinking about it, but I don't like really the options I'm thinking about.
Well,
Too bad.
I mean, Commissioner, that's
Unfortunately,
coming to the station, whether you like it or not, it's coming to the station, you're gonna have to do something.
I mean, I don't like them either, but
Is this feasible to get an answer to get back to the board so the board can readdress this and make all the deadlines, we have to February, be on top of this? And Clay has already said that fiscally, we're sound at the moment, but futuristically, can you get this information back in a timely fashion?
I will do my best.
We have like a 10-week turnaround period. I think, some of it has been discussed previously with legal counsel, so I don't know if this question was necessarily posed then, it doesn't sound like
No.
so. I wouldn't think that would take much research from legal counsel to make that determination. And I think the other two have already been discussed with legal counsel, correct me if I'm wrong, Director, but I would think that a 10-week turnaround, even with the holidays forthcoming, I
think so.
I think it could be possible to have that answer. I mean, probably not by your next board meeting, but I would say by maybe the first meeting in December, have some answers.
well, Commissioner Barno makes a good point. according to the first draft budget, you're still gonna have, I say only, you're gonna go into your fund equity 130,000 and still have 500 left, so through 25. I mean, it's not pretty, but at least it's not down to zero.
Well, and I believe going back to our last conversation, that budget was with eliminating a full-time employee. Which I disagree with. So we could probably be a little bit more into that. Like, keep the current staff.
Okay. I guess my only point was you're not gonna be all done with for 541,000. Hopefully.
If it is, we're all having a bad day.
Right.
Well, the pleasure of the board then is to get more information and address it in the future. I think probably that is the best solution to get there. That's, you okay with that? All right. Long discussion on the surcharge, but it was very productive. So we're gonna move on to the last item in the new business, which is number 9, 9/11 dispatch public alerting system change from RAVE to OnSolve. And once again, John Ramirez, the 9/11 director, will be presenting.
Once again, commissioners, a year ago, we weren't in a position to transition away from our public alerting that we use. Many times you receive something that says the road is closed, or there's inclement weather, or there's a significant incident impacting an area of travel. So I had previously extended our contract with RAVE by 1 year. That contract is coming up, so I reached out to 4 separate public alerting systems to try to find a suitable substitute that ideally benefits not only the citizens, the consumers, but is easy to use within dispatch when they're dealing with emergencies. There were some great products that at a very high level offered a significant package of accessories and abilities. But just for an idea, RAVE for renewal is $15,300 to continue the SIM service that we have, and we've been with them several years. Hyper Reach came in at $12,300. Alert Media came in with a 3-year contract they wanted. And they had a 5% increase every year, starting with $10,500 and topping out at $12,000. And then OnSolve, also known as Code Red, they are IPAWS certified. We can set up geofencing for alerts so that not everyone that signs up for the service is getting an alert for a road they've never heard of or traveled on. This software has also been tested and tried in Lapeer County, and they stand by it. So on the recommendation of my authority board and myself, it's a request to go ahead into contract obligation with a 1 year with OnSolve to provide the public alerting system for 911.
That cost is gonna be $74.21.
That is the correct cost, and then I believe they ended up, there's an email attachment, I don't know if that was sent to you, is they're going to go ahead and cut us a discount, reducing it to $6,671.07.
I'm sorry, John, you said 6,600 what?
$6,671.07. This is also something that if we want to collaborate with different agencies such as Vassar or Caro, Reese was previously on our alerting system, but under this contract, they're also able to send out alerts for when they do something like the Pumpkin Roll or Cars and Crafts Weekend or the Pumpkin Festival, to let their constituents know that the State Street or Main is shut down or anything like that. Street festival. So
You'd be happy with OnSolve?
I believe so. Not only are they significantly cheaper, but I believe their accessory package is superior compared to what we have currently. So that's our recommendation.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the change, for the 911 dispatch public alerting system for Ray Onsall in order to reduce cost effectively at the cost of $6,671.07 as presented by Dan Ramirez, 911 dispatch director. All authorized signatures.
Oh, one moment, please. What date did you put in there? Cost effective, what date?
Can we do January 1?
January 1, 2025. And then, can you clarify the cost, because are we adding in the non-reoccurring service fees? Units of the 6671 figure, I believe. And I don't, but the order total is the 7421, Director?
They had, through an email, told me that they were going to give us a discount to the
And-
6671.
So the amount is corrected to 667107.
Yes.
And that's what was, okay. Can you just restate that so that the date is clear, Commissioner
Yes,
Lutz?
as of January 1, 2025.
Or
Thank you.
Motion by Commissioner Lewis, supported by Commissioner Young, to approve the change to the 911 dispatch public alerting system from Ray to Onsall in order to reduce costs effective January 1st, 2025, at a cost of $6,671.77. That's 07, 667107, as presented by John Ramirez, 911 dispatch director, and authorize all necessary signatures. That is the motion brought forward. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Opposed, hearing none. The change has been approved. Thank you, John. That completes all the new business, and we have old business to go into. Normally, we take a break at this point, but we have two judges here that have been patiently waiting this morning. And, is it?
It's a good break.
Okay. Okay. Wasn't sure what your schedule was, but the judges have allowed us to
We're okay.
take a break. Well, please, the board. Sure. I'll take a 10-minute then, we'll reconvene. We're ready. Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome back. We just took the board took a recess of about 10 minutes, just for a break, and now we're reassembled. We have, as you know, completed our new business. We're moving into old business. Without further ado, we're going to move into item number 1, which is the November 5th, 2024 board meeting review on additional costs. And next Meister, Attorney Chief Accountant will be presented.
So first of all, Commissioners, I made out a sheet because the one that I had in the packet was missing one item. Clerk Betty, I gave you one, so you have a copy of it. I just highlighted the item that somehow got missed when we put it in the packet. So basically what this is everything that was discussed and requested over and above where we were at that point in the budget. So if it was included in the budget, such as Larry Zapp's request, his initial budget request had that in there, that 36,000. So that is in his budget already. He has sufficient funds to cover that. So that's why I made a mention that yes, it is over there. Now, as in like the third item too, departments, when we ask them to enter their budgets and put their request in, this request for the truck was entered in the actual in the 244. So it is sitting there, but these are the decisions that have to be made today on each one of these items, whether it's in there right now or not. Other than the non-general fund related, which I think the only one right now, well, I guess there's two that don't affect the general fund. Obviously, the mosquito abatement one doesn't. Potentially, the dispatch request for a supervisor position could, as we talked about earlier, but as of right now, it would just affect his budget. So I don't know if you want to hit these one at one. I do have a little bit of an update because I know I was pushing by the end of this meeting to have decisions made so we can go to press on advertising for the budget hearing. We do have time. We do have, so November 25th meeting would be the final day that me and the fiscal analyst need a final answer from you on what's going to be included in this 25 budget. That number will go in the newspaper, and then we will have our budget hearing, I believe on December 12th. What will come after that meeting is the final budget. We push the button, budget's in play. Obviously, in the next year, you can amend the budget in any way, but we've got to have a budget adopted. We got to make sure no adopted budgets are obviously in a deficit position. So these are the additional requests for you to review and to make decisions on. Hopefully, most of them can be addressed today. And I noticed the judges are here as well to talk about the law clerk position. We do have on here the law clerk position request at the time of $28,000. So I'll let you guys kind of go through these items or.
Clay, I got a couple questions. The issue or the percentage of fund balance is currently at 17%,
Correct.
which we passed. I don't know when, but anyway, when can we address that as a board to see if we should lower it?
I would suggest at this time, you don't take any action to amend or change that. We're gonna have new auditors under review. We talked about before, 60 days of operation costs. That 17% is gonna vary based on your expenditures. I think you should keep it in play. I think you should stay with it until you get a new administration in here and new auditors in here and have all of that reviewed. I would recommend that you don't reverse any of that action. I've, in the packet today, I've assumed that, because I wasn't aware of it before, so I did update your all fund sheet. In your all fund sheet on page 64 of the agenda, I've addressed that to show you what that means, so to speak, on your balance sheet, what it's looking like, what funds are available, what is projected that you're potentially going to be using. If you granted everything, then when the funds are left. when the funds are granted. Keep in mind, your revenue to expenditure ratio, with nothing else to it, is anticipated, we still have to use $148,000 of fund balance. Just on your regular stuff. Not adding in the additional $1,040,000 on your additional request. So we show a full $1,188,516 use of $1.9 million that you have available now. Unassigned, formerly known as PGS money. We had, if you look at page 50, or page 64, you'll see where your unassigned now has been wiped out because your 17% would have used up any of your unassigned, and it also used up some of your unassigned formerly PGS funds. So we've shored all that up, and it shows you beginning 25 with nothing else happening, the 1.9 million. Anticipated at least 148,000, and then on top of that, another 1,040,000 on the additional request. Does that help at all? So
Yes,
you
but,
can see the picture here, as
Right.
far as what the,
so let's say after the first of the year, then we were to change that from 17%, once we all feel comfortable with the new audit, administration, whatever, then we could ultimately revisit some items that maybe we couldn't make
correct.
them, okay.
That would free up more available
Okay.
funds. It would, right now, the policy that you have in place does lock down 17%. And when I look at 17% and how I calculate it at, it's your next year expenditure budget. So your next year expenditure budget, I have it at, worst case scenario. To me, it's worst case. You approve everything. Everything's go. Then,
And I'm not saying we're gonna, but at least we could look at it, is what I'm
Right.
saying.
so I kind of showed you, if everything's go, what happens? 17.9 million is your general fund budget. Out of that, you're using 1,188,516 of reserves to make that happen. And then you're gonna end up with about $723,000 in unreserved going forward. And those requests include your equipment tech, the $252,000 for the equipment tech fund and the $441,000 for the 483 fund, your capital needs.
So we wouldn't be ready to go January 1st. How long would it take to get the audit back to us?
You mean the 24 audit? Well, your 24 audit, you won't get until about May or June. But, you don't need an audit to make those decisions if you change policy. If you change policy, then you're basically just moving money from assigned to unassigned.
But I agree with you, I think we should wait till the next.
Yeah, I don't want you guys making me, rush into any hasty decisions, especially looking forward in your tenure. And, you won't be able to sustain to be able to keep that.
17%?
I
No
don't
way.
see that happening without, severe cuts, but at the same time, it is being fiscally responsible to making sure if the government shut down, what would you do to operate it for 90 days or 60 days of operation, which is 2 months.
Right.
So Claire, we got all these over here in the right column, it's in the red. We gotta clear that up.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys want to go through the decisions and look at your request again, on what's coming at you and, if you want to kind of give us some kind of guidance or suggestion, whether you want to make a yes or a no on some of these today, so we can work them into what we have to be prepared for on the 25th, or on the 25th is your last day to say yay or nay and tell us what you want in the budget.
Just a quick question. This is different from the one that we had on earlier, the one that you posted here in the agenda. The numbers have changed, correct?
And I have updates.
Yeah,
Yes.
great.
I have updates to report on what was in the agenda. We've got we've got a lot of updates to, some of the stuff has been fixed. Yeah,
Because
you
the
know,
unassigned had 244,000 when I printed it off, but that was, when you sent it out earlier, now it's a zero. And it's,
correct.
And just about, I'm just getting clarity, the 723 is basically the PGS, what's remaining of the PGS funds?
The 723 is everything combined as your unassigned, period.
Okay,
It's,
So that's-
and that's why I put like a little parenthesis, formerly known as, that is your unassigned. We
okay,
usually carried, in history, we usually carried about 500,000 there every year. We try to keep that little float there on top of having the 10%. So as I reported last time, usually when the year ended, for compliance reasons with the state of Michigan, we were always around 20% in our, fund balance, unreserved, in all of it. So we were, one year we were at 50% when all that money came in. So we were always above that 17%. But with what's coming down the pipe in the future, we may not be able to have that extra float. We might have to be using that for operations. So that's why I'm like, wait till you get your new administrator in here. We got a new accounting team coming in. I'm excited about that. And then I think they'll go forward from there. But for now, let's leave it where it's at and the decision that you guys made previously.
and the next question before we move forward, and before the board has any other questions, is that the request sheet, they're all on the old business as agenda items, right? So the board can go through each one of those and basically answer those questions. Is that how that was set up?
Yes, except for it might have that EDC one still has to get addressed. So if we want to go through that after the court administrator and item number 2, we can start going through all of that one by one.
Okay, just so I knew how to drive the bus, so to speak.
Yeah.
I didn't know if it was this sheet or the agenda, but it does look like they're all listed, but the EDC.
So for clarity, for today moving forward, we gotta get rid of that red stuff over here.
Yeah, and when I get ready to go through that, pretty much all of it has been fixed, has been corrected, so I will update you on that. That has happened, thankfully, the court administrator rolled up her sleeves and, all of that has pretty much been taken care of. There's probably, the animal shelter still has to get addressed a little bit, but everything else is pretty
So
much.
this tech fund has been taken care of? And you're selling.
Well, so the tech fund is determining whether you guys are gonna approve or not approve the projects going forward. So even though it's red on your sheet, it's not in the whole, if you guys approve that transfer to cover those projects. The red is showing because until you approve it, all of those projects are sitting there and they need funding.
So is there anything that the board needs to review and approve in old business item 1 before they move into item 2?
No, I'm comfortable moving forward, to item number 2, and then you can go through the sheet as we listed on the agenda.
Okay,
This is just the summary sheet, wanted to let you know that EDC item, needs to be on there as well, because that was an additional request.
so board, have any other questions?
I just want clarifications. So Clay, you're saying that we don't necessarily have to make decisions on all of these motions today?
Correct, we would like to, if we could, on most of them, but the 25th meeting, when we leave that meeting,
I understand
we
that.
need to know what has to be punched in, so we'll be crunching numbers during the meeting to decide what's your final number that you're gonna authorize us to advertise for your budget public hearing. So that will be the drop dead date.
And Mr. Chair, the only reason I ask that is because we only have 4 of us here. And if I was gone, I would like to, and I'm not saying kick the can down the road, but I guess I'm gonna say it. At least I think we need to take that into consideration. And I'm just speaking for myself.
Well, certainly understand that pleasure of the board, because here we sat, and there's a whole list of items here to
Right.
go through. So, and I know that we realize the plant needs some kind of understanding and placeholder to, well, move forward with the budget so that we have one more meeting, correct? Just checking this out.
Yep.
That we would have to make, and the chair will be here, right? Yes. So that would be the drop dead date,
Correct.
and then we'd have to go into the public hearing after that. Okay.
If they're gonna make the decision for the 25th, then be a board of commissioners meeting and a committee of the whole.
Correct,
Right.
Correct. Yes, it's a public.
because of the Thanksgiving holiday.
Yes, the 20th is posted as a board meeting.
Okay, any other thoughts or before we move into number 2? Any other thoughts? All right, let's move on to old business. Item number 2, further discussion on the new statement of the law clerk position for Union Court in 2025. She will law clerk administrator will be presenting.
Good morning.
Good morning.
We all-
Judge.
Yeah, well, it's me, what up, yeah, Sheila knows more about it than I do, but here I am. So she's here available for questions too. And just as a side note, Sheila and Clea have worked very hard this week to work through the issues on the childcare fund as well as the front of the court budget. So I think we're in good shape there. It's gonna require us to not replace the position in the front of the court, so that'll be 2 FTEs that we've eliminated this year from the front of the court. But, you know, we're doing what we need to do. So, my request is for a law clerk. And, as always, I have to indulge you in a little bit of historical perspective here. So since 2012, when I took the bench, December 17th of 2012, I had a full-time law clerk up until August of 2020 during COVID, when I laid the law clerk off because I didn't feel like it was, because of the way things were going, there really wasn't work to be done, and we really needed more administrative hands-on at that time because of what we were dealing with. So at that time, we hired a deputy court administrator. Then in 2022, I had asked for a full-time law clerk. $28,000 was approved, which is a part-time law clerk. So I was able to hire a law clerk. You're never gonna hire a part-time law clerk, okay? No one's gonna do that job for $28,000. So what we were able to do, because we had some docket management funds from SCAO after COVID, we were able to take $28,000 plus the SCAO money we were able to get after COVID, put that together, have a full-time law clerk. So we hired Mr. Porzondek. We operated in that fashion until we no longer had the SCAO money. And then we had an opportunity to put him as deputy court administrator and law clerk. So, and we ran him through the front of the court budget. So for at least the last year, we didn't utilize the $28,000. We never gave up the $28,000, but it's no longer in our budget. So I'm asking, number one, for the $28,000 back, which we never gave up, okay? It was just by reconfiguring things and actually saving money that we weren't utilizing the $28,000, but I never gave it up. So I'm asking at a bare minimum to have my $28,000 reinstated, which I never gave up. But secondarily, I am asking you to consider a full-time law clerk, okay? And I'm going to just go on a quick little dissertation as to why I think that's required. As you know, Judge Bitzer and I have come before you and your predecessors on multiple occasions regarding the MIDC and how the MIDC affects the court. And you can see how it's affecting the prosecutor's office, all right? Because you've got some requests from them. I can't say that I don't support their requests because all of this is a product of this MIDC, what this has created, okay? So my docket is created, 60% of my docket is criminal. Whatever comes from the prosecutor's office, okay, is gonna go through Judge Bitzer to me. So if we had a prosecutor, we're gonna add cases. MIDC, I mean, so they have, the prosecutor's office has 6 attorneys right now. MIDC has multiple, you have 2 employees, but there's also obviously multiple contractors. It's created multiple problems. Prosecutor's office, nobody wants to go to the prosecutor's office because they can go to the MIDC and make twice as much money. The MIDC director is making more money than the elected prosecuting official in the county who arguably, in my opinion, my humble opinion, has substantially more responsibilities than that position. But that's how it's happened. And I feel like I've kind of tried to put it out there multiple times with FOIA requests, bills. This is what we're doing. This is what we're creating, which, you know, in your defense, it costs you $250,000 regardless of if the budget's $2 million or if it's $500,000. But the problem is the effect on the entire system has been substantial. So we've got all the MIDC attorneys, we've got 6 prosecutors, that's 60% of my docket, which doesn't include my civil docket. You know, I have a substantial litigation right now, an Eagle litigation with a local farm that takes up a substantial period of time, all right? I have all my civil docket. I am running 2 treatment courts now because Judge Prill in Maddox didn't want to do the drug court anymore. Commissioner Lutz has agreed to be on my team and brings a really important community perspective to our court, but we're trying to do all of these things. I'm working on an MAT program, medically assisted treatment program through the jail with Lieutenant Harris and Liz Psychological. I'm involved in a federal program where we're trying to, Judge Bitzer has finished, almost finished his. I've got another one that I'm starting a project right now. So we're trying to do all these things. So what I'm trying to explain to you in a very verbose way is that everything that the prosecutor told you when they were here with their requests, and they may tell you more today, but everything that it goes through Judge Bitzer and it goes through me, okay? So those are 2 people. You've got 6 prosecutors and however many MIDC, and then 60% of my docket, and that doesn't include treatment courts. It doesn't include all the grant work that we do. The treatment courts are fully funded by grants that we've gone out and gotten. You know, that doesn't cost you any money. So the employees that directly work with me, obviously Sheila, I have one person who does the scheduling, who does the, you know, takes care of the recording. She does all of the scheduling for all the civil, all the criminal, and is in court with me. And that's it. So here's what the law clerk does. First of all, the law clerk significantly helps me with the civil docket, which is the heavier side of research, legal research, helps me prepare opinions. You know, I'm gonna do what I'm gonna do. You know, obviously I'm gonna do my job. I'm gonna do my job to the best of my ability. You got me for 6 more years despite people's efforts otherwise, but anyways, you're stuck with me. So my point being is, I need help, I need one person. And I think Sheila asked Clea just to use the scale, the assistant prosecutor scale, which I think is roughly a cost of $100,000 with benefits. So that's what I'm asking for, but, you know, in my law clerk I have right now is leaving to go practice because he's gonna obviously make more money and he's gonna be taking advantage of the MIDC stuff, which you're just gonna continue to see it. And I don't even know how the prosecutor is gonna be able to fill the position because the money is just, there's a disparity now, a large disparity. So, but as far as my needs, I'm humbly asking you to, first of all, reinstate the $28,000 that I never gave up, but also to consider a full-time law clerk because I need help. If I'm gonna do, if I'm gonna do treatment course, I'm gonna do these other things that we're trying to do, I need that extra assistance. So I'd be glad to answer any questions you may have.
So do we know what the total would be on the full-time law clerk?
It's roughly 100,000, I think, if we use the bottom step of the assistant prosecutors.
About 60,000 in wage and 40 in benefits.
That comes out of general fund?
Yes, it would be in the unified court budget. If you take into consideration, and I think it's the same thing, the 28,000 is just part of your.
Right, so the
So,
20, so you could subtract 28, so it would be an additional request of 72, yes.
That was gonna be my question.
Yeah. Because the 28 does exist, it's just, as you all can imagine, trying to hire somebody part-time in that position is just an impossibility. And we don't have the money
Yeah, I was gonna
available
say.
that we could put together
Yeah.
before to make it a full-time position.
When you had that, it worked out great.
Yeah. So,
Any other questions from the board?
all right, thank you for your consideration.
Thank you.
Consideration for a motion?
Well, the motion we have as a potential is just addressing the 28,000. Correct? Clerk Fetty?
Yes, as the proposed motion, it's for the law clerk position, be reinstated at a cost of $28,000. I think that would be clearer to say that was for the part-time law clerk, right? Would that be correct?
Right, which was never good enough, I guess, it was taken out, but it was never.
So that would be just the formality to reinstate what was originally there. And I think that your consideration would be to make that a full-time position at the cost of that beginning step at the assistant prosecutor wage. Is that how did I understand that correctly?
Well, if we did the full-time, we wouldn't even, why would we even move on that? The 28?
You wouldn't need to if you were gonna do the full-time.
Okay.
I think then that what you could do is just reword that, and make it, instead of part-time, change it to a full-time law clerk position in the unified court budget, be probably established in the 2025 budget at a cost of $100,000. I have to get that figured. So you could move that the full-time law clerk position in the unified court budget be established in the 2025 unified court budget at a cost of
I would say estimated cost of, that's what we brought at about
Okay, estimated cost of, and what is that figure?
$100,000.
$100,000 even?
Yeah, that's why we're estimating it.
No, just make sure I didn't miss anything.
It's a rough estimate.
And is that capturing that correctly?
Yes.
Okay, so.
Clay, what would that bring the unified court budget be up to? Was trying to find that.
Unified court budget is on page 4 and page 5. Right now, the draft budget is set at $2,895,286. It does not include the 28,000 because in the previous motion to the commissioners was to reinstate it for 1 year, the 28,000, a motion back in 21. So in 20, I'm not sure, the part-time position stayed part-time though in 23, so it must have been in the budget at that time.
It
was split
continues.
between 2 funds or something.
Yeah, we used the 28,000 and then we supplemented it to make it full-time with that, scale, the docket management grant. So that, the 28,000 changed when we put Martin down in the front of the court. And then we were no longer using those funds.
So that's the time that it kind of regulated in the unified court budget itself and kind of.
Then we didn't spend it, yeah, we didn't spend it.
And that to the additional cost then on your sheet, that would change those, as we discuss things and approve things or don't approve things, it affects that bottom line. The 1,188,516. So that's our number that we're fluctuating with, on adding or taking away cost on the bottom line request.
But the 28 was included in here.
Was not.
Yeah, it was.
And the it's included on this sheet.
That's what I meant.
Right,
Yeah.
but when you look at the sheet, it's not in your numbers and your actual numbers in your budget. It's over and above.
So it's above that 28.
Right, so when you're looking at the actual 25 proposed first draft budget, it's not there yet.
Is there a revised motion coming forward? One more time. Silence is hard to read, but I think I know what you're trying to say. Is there a revised motion coming forward? I know there's one sort of created or crafted on the subject, or any further discussion. Okay, hearing none. There's no motion.
Does the board request this to be placed back on the November 25th meeting for any further discussion?
I would,
Perfect.
with Chairman, I'd like to have it 5 this year.
As I'm looking at the calendar, just a segue here, I may not be here, I'm on state. I don't know what the travel plans coming back are, but I know that when it's on Monday, I just noticed, as you may know, family reunions are pretty sticky.
And I don't know what, Claire and Debbie's timeline is, that if it's for the notice of the budget hearing, I don't know if it could be maybe rescheduled to Tuesday or Wednesday, if that would be better to have all 5 here. So that would be a consideration that we have time to possibly address that if necessary.
I have to notify the paper by December 4th.
Okay, so we would have that Monday, that Tuesday, Wednesday, that you could reschedule the board meeting for, if that would work better for your travel plans, and it would work for all of the board.
And I will, now that I know what's going on, I will check to see what they plan on coming back. So,
That week, we only have one scheduled on Monday.
We only have one scheduled due to Thursday and Friday being holidays. Correct. So, but if we
I can
needed
do Monday,
to,
Tuesday, or Wednesday, so.
if we needed to fluctuate that and do that as a reschedule.
I think it's just fair we have 5 here.
well, don't reschedule it.
You gotta make it the same way you.
Yeah, I gotta go back to Doc. I'm thinking I'm gonna be here, but as,
Well, what would be safe for you to be here?
well,
We can
no,
make a different day.
you know, in my world, we have plenty of time. We don't have to get anywhere early, so that might be debatable at home, but, I think at this point, let's just say, let's do it. I just want to raise a question.
And just an option for you to consider moving forward in the next few days, making sure that Debbie still would have enough time.
Well, let's go by email, so.
Yeah, yeah.
That's where I see. All right, just, I know we segued off that, but,
So I'll put still to place it on the November 25th agenda, and then if that date changes, we'll know that this matter moves forward to that agenda.
Great.
Okay, thank you, Commissioners.
So I'll jump in, I just want to make sure, so it's gonna go in print form, because it has to be in print form and writing, or on the 11th? And the hearing's on the 12th?
No,
No.
I have to notify the paper and have it published by the 4th. December 4th.
So it's gonna be print on the 4th?
Yes, and
So what date does it have to be to the paper? Like maybe?
So on
Monday,
Monday,
the
I'll notify, actually, I wanted to notify the paper on Friday, I think it's the 29th, to have it in the paper by Wednesday, December 4th, for the
Which-
public hearing.
The 29th is our holiday, so I'm guessing you probably won't be here. So I would say if you could have it to the paper by close of business on the 27th, then they will be able to publish that by the 4th.
We're gonna meet on the 25th.
If you
Yeah,
have.
we gotta get the numbers all in the system and print those reports out, so we have them ready for public inspection.
I think that even if you notify them, if you let Publisher Murphy know that you're gonna be having it at about what size it is, he can then plan for the space and then put the final wording in on Monday and you'll be fine.
So you think that works for you, Commissioner Bartle? You're checking. Checking in right now.
And that's a decision that we don't have to make.
No, we don't have to take that right now. No.
Yeah.
hopefully by the end of this day, it is. All right, so that was, we're back on for the 25th. Moving on to number 3. Further discussion to include cost for truck purchase and the Equipment Tech Fund 244. Court. Drain Commissioner, and Darrell, Deputy Drain Commissioner.
Good morning, board. I approached the board last time regarding this, and I would just like you guys to really to consider the proposal. It's a one-time scenario. It's not going to affect the budget throughout the years, but I think the position that we're in with the current truck moving forward, I think it's for safety features, it would be a benefit to the office. The information that was provided, do you have any questions?
Any questions for Darrell? Any questions? This was, looks like it was budgeted, correct, Claudia?
So,
Okay.
that being said, it was like at department request time and they enter them into the BSNA system. It is in the numbers, as a request. So when we look at the BSNA system, it's in there. It's still pending, obviously, it's still pending the board's decisions on to, keep it in the budget or remove it from the budget or, it's on the list of additional requests. But I wanted to say it is in the budget because it is entered into the BSNA system.
Okay.
Thank you, board.
Thank you.
Is there a motion coming forward? Anyone making a motion on the truck request? One more time, anyone making a motion before we move on? If we're saying none, would you like that on the 25th as well?
Sure.
Okay. It's a pleasure to board, so sure. And moving on to old business number 4, further discussion on prosecutor's request for hiring of an assistant prosecuting attorney.
My opinion, we should do the same thing as we did for the courts. I think we should wait. My opinion.
No one's here to present.
No, it would have been the same, as I
Same
presented
before.
before, I just laid it out, each one of these I laid out in a motion for potential action.
I'll ask, is there any motion coming forward on the prosecutor's request for assistant prosecuting attorney? I don't think I need to ask that a second time. All right, want that on the 25th?
Yes.
Okay, so board's request is before the 25th, pleasure of the board. Moving on to number 5, old business, further discussion on the prosecutor's request for the hiring of a part-time victim services employee.
Claire, can you give us any insight on that?
Well, it looks confusing when I look at your motion sheets, but I think the intent was on these motions is to break down each one of those requests. That,
Oh, yeah, well, yeah.
So for
5 and 6 is already.
yeah, so the motion in the middle kind of has everything, but then the,
Oh, I see.
5 and 6, 5 and 6 and 4 should have been just for the 105,000 for the main prosecuting attorney, and then the other 2 are for each one of the part-time, so.
And was the part-times presented last week?
Yes.
Yeah.
Like you said, thank you, Linda.
All 3 of them.
He kind of added them all together at one
Thank you.
time.
So that includes item 6, so.
Yeah, 4, 5, and 6 basically cover the 3 positions that he was requesting.
Is there any further discussion on any of those? Pleasure of the board to move it to the 25th? How do they know that? All right. Now we're down to number 7, further discussion on 911 dispatch director request to add a dispatch supervisor position. John Ramirez, director, will be presenting.
I apologize for that, I stepped out to take a phone call. Yes, we are simply asking that we do not lose our full-time employee of the supervisor. And we just ask for the consideration of just that. As we discussed, we are certainly aware of our financial outlook. But I do not feel comfortable this time for operations or safety or even budget reasons to eliminate a full-time employee.
Any questions for John? Anyone entertaining a motion?
Thank you.
Thank you, John. Hearing none, move that to the 25th. That was number 7. Moving to number 8, further discussion on converting the Fetch GIS system from a paid service to a free service and adjust the budget accordingly for these changes. Cody Barton.
Morning, gentlemen. Obviously, reading the room, I don't need to give a grand spiel or anything, but I did receive an email from our treasurer, which was a forwarded request that her office had received. It was an agency asking for delinquent tax breakdown history for a dozen properties. And she said that this is a request that she receives multiple times a day, every day. All I can say about that is if we make this a free service, we can sort of shift the effort that the treasurer's office and other offices are doing to fill these requests onto the requesting individual. Do you have any other questions?
Any other questions from the board? Okay, all set?
Also,
3-0. Anyone entertaining a motion?
I'll entertain that motion. That for the request of Cody Horton, GIS Director, and Ashley Bennett, County Treasurer, that effective January 1, 2025, there will be no longer a service charge for the Fetch GIS service. Also aimed at the following budget to account for these free services. Increase transfers out from the General Fund 101 to the GIS Fund 258 by $20,000. Increase the transfers into the GIS Fund 258 from the General Fund 101 by $20,000. Decrease the GIS consultant partial Fetch expenses by $8,000. Increase the expenses in the tax foreclosure fund 532 by $8,000.
Support that.
Moved by Commissioner Lutz and supported by Commissioner Young, that for the request of Cody Horton, GIS Director, and Ashley Bennett, County Treasurer, that effective January 1st, 2025, there will be no longer be a service charge for the Fetch GIS service. Also, amend the following budgets to account for this free service. Increase the transfer out from the General Fund 101 to the GIS Fund 258 by $20,000. Increase transfer into the GS Fund 258 from the General Fund 101 by $20,000. Decrease the GIS consultant partial Fetch expense by $8,000. Increase the expense in the tax foreclosure fund 532 by $8,000. That is the motion that's put forward. Is there any further discussion? Seeing or hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Moving on to number 9.
I don't know if I can interject at all.
Yeah,
I will step forward to getting that process converted over January 1st to align with our budgets. I will say that there will probably still be a bit of revenue coming in for the rest of this year. But I thank you for your consideration.
Going back to number 9, updates on the 2025 total fund revenue budget, led by Kaiser and their chief accountant.
I'm not sure where I'm going with this because we have so many fingers in front of us right now. The general fund, 25 budget revenue, I'm looking, I've got the printout for you. I also have the all fund sheets. Basically, the revenues are still budgeted for 25 at $16,574,420. I don't know if you got any questions on that, or maybe it's gonna better fit when we sit down and go through all of the all fund sheet, where I can kind of review all that information. You do have your little printout books that show you all funds broken down, revenue expenditures, it reflects all fund balance. this is your backup, for your summary sheet that that you have in your packet of this one here.
What's this motion on the next sheet? Is that in regards to what you're saying, or is that a different?
That's for the summer tax.
Oh, yeah, better update you on this one. So during our process.
So this is different?
Well, it's during the process, it is on your summary sheet here. So since we last met, the treasurer did look at the revenues. And she did identify 3 line items that need, in the general fund revenue, that needed attention. So, on the bottom of your summary sheet, or on the first page of your book, you'll see the line items I identified. The summer collections, 447253. It's currently budgeted at 180,000. She says that needs to be reduced by 40,000. So I think I wrote a motion in there about that reduction. Yeah, it's all in one motion. The second item is the winter collections. And she says that budget needs to go away. It's currently budgeted at 35. She said that should be at 0 for 25. And then the third item is the reimbursement, KCI tax processing. And she says that budget is too low moving into next year. So she wants to increase that from 25,000 to 60, or an increase of 35,000. So those changes have to have board action to be incorporated into the next round of budget cycle. So I do need a motion, because I am changing them, and that's something that changed since we gave you our first draft.
So Claire, what does KCI stand for?
It's a common communications incorporator, it's out of Grand Rapids, and they do a lot of, printing and mailing of tax bills, election paperwork, and, we mail a lot of election things. I know they mail a lot of treasurers at a cost lower than what we can currently buy a stamp for.
And it's a reimbursement, so we're getting revenue from them on the processing, how the process is happening.
Mr. Chairman, I move that per the recommendation from Ashley Bennett, County Treasurer, line item 101-000-447-253, summer collections be reduced by 40,000. Line item 101-000-448-253, winter collections be reduced by 35,000. And line item 101-000-689-253, reimbursement KCI tax processing be increased by 35,000.
Support.
Moved by Commissioner Cook and supported by Commissioner Woods, that for the recommendation of Ashley Bennett, County Treasurer, line item number 101-000-447-253, summer collections be reduced by 40,000. And line item number 101-000-448-253, winter collections be reduced by 35,000. And the line item number 101-000-689-253, reimbursement KCI tax processing be increased by 35,000. That was the motion that was presented. Is there any further discussion? Hearing or seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion's approved. Going back to 9, was that just information?
That was, so that was number 9.
Oh, that wasn't everything, okay.
I kind of got lost in the shuffle. Appreciate you keeping it track.
All right. Okay, item number 10, potential action on the Equipment Tech Fund 244, again, Clayette.
Yeah, so this is a reminder again, this is multiple requests coming in, where you have the, all fund sheet in here as well that breaks down that request. We're looking for guidance on if you're going to approve any or all of that today. Again, the breakdown sheet on that, I think it's in the packet. On our request, if not, if you turn the page in your all funds. Actually, we do have it in the back, what you got? Yes. Okay, I don't know what, which is.
I don't know what page it is, but I think.
Yeah, I'm looking. because that, yeah, here it is. If you look at page 62. So those are the items that are coming in as a request, and it is broken down between the 483 fund, the 244 fund, and then the jail capital improvement fund, which is the 488 fund. I guess we're looking for guidance on what, if any decisions are being made on any of that today. On your sheet of requests, they are listed, the dollar amounts of what they need as far as that's gonna be general fund being transferred out, for the 244 fund. The 483 fund does carry a fund balance, but we've really been burning that one too. In the past, we were trying to keep that at about $1 million, because of the big projects that could be coming down the pipes. So we're looking at a transfer from the general fund for, the 244 fund of $252,000, for the 483 fund, $441,000. And if you got any questions, the requests that are coming in, obviously the 244 fund, computer operations is a majority of it, as well as the new truck for the drain commissioner is listed there as well. So it shows you the backup, what makes up that 252,000.
So I have a question. Is all this needs, or is it needs and wants, or is it we want it, but we really don't need it right now? Is there stuff on here we need right now? Is that something that you could answer?
Yes. Looking at my computer operations requests, cameras and door access controls are something that are asked for by all departments throughout the year. I just started putting these in there as a regular scheduled build out every year. I'm gonna ask you for that, because they asked me for that. So if you'd like to trim anything, door access controls and cameras are something you could, that would be a want. As far as servers, workstations, switches, and fiber build out, that's all needed for licensing, continued operations of the program. Dispatch cameras, those exist already. We're trying to move those to the county system. That could be a consideration. Dispatch phones are already existing. They already work. We're trying to move those to the county system. That could be a consideration. The video wall for the new building, I would highly suggest you don't do that, or you don't cut that. It is not existing. We don't have anything over there. And if we're gonna have meetings, trainings in that facility, it makes sense to have video presence in there. The microfilm, those we can subcontract out. I know the building permits was a shocking number. I think it was like $250,000 to get that done. We can do a general ledger. I think Claudette said for $3,000, we can about get it done. But that's subcontracting it, you're gonna do it every year. These two figures are from us doing it internally and buying the equipment to do that. So, whether you want, you could kick that can down the road if you'd like. But
We still, we're gonna have to adjust like the building in general ledger one way or another. The $3,000 in the past was for multiple years. So it wasn't every year that we have a microfilm, but we waited a few years and have it done. It has been a few years and it needs to get microfilmed. If that's still the state's requirement, for us to get that on film, or if anything's changing and retention and how we have to hold it. General ledger is a permanent record of fiscal accounting. We have to maintain that, so.
So you're saying the microfilm build would probably be a need? Is that what you're saying?
It is, but I'm suspecting that if we outsource that, the last time I outsourced it for multiple years, it was $3,000. I'm sure that cost has gone up, it might be more like $5,000. But it was multiple years I had done the last time we did it.
Is there a way for since we're making a lot of these decisions on the 25th, a way to get a breakdown on what you feel want or need out of that $690,000?
Well, his is only, 200 and,
What's the 483, sorry?
That's Mike Miller.
Um,
He's the one that's
Okay, out of the 252 then?
244.
244, sorry. I got 252, where am I coming up with
Oh, that's the
244?
number I was asking about the month.
yeah.
Sorry.
252,000 includes the 40,000 for the truck. So if you take the 40,000 for the truck off, then that's what's left for his request.
All I'm,
You're asking me for bare bones.
all I'm asking for, if we can make this decision on the 25th, what you feel is the bare bones? Is that possible?
So,
Yes,
so the PSB video wall, that's kind of a need.
yes.
So maybe like the top 4 we know is a need, the PSB video wall is a need. Do you see anything else on there that was an item?
Commissioner knows he's gonna bring it to us.
Okay, you're gonna bring it.
Printers is the only other thing that we have to continuously prepare and swap out printers for these folks.
So like Commissioner Cook said, the 25th, you'll bring us the absolute bare bones.
I'll have it in your email inbox in 5 minutes.
You're all right.
Thank you, sir.
Welcome.
Is that concluded the discussion on number 10?
Yes.
I think so.
Okay. More to come on the 25th or in 10 minutes?
I think we keep doing this, Commissioner Barlow is gonna be gone. Right, sir? Or what?
I want to just jump in here and let you know that on the 25th, it's going to be a busy meeting. We have 3 candidates coming in for the board interview for the controller admin position on the 25th.
Okay,
So,
we'll get it figured out.
All right, so on to number 11, potential action on the jail capital improvement fund 488. Client once again will be presenting.
Okay, again, look at page 62, 63 of your agenda. I guess focus on page 63. We are, well, yeah, it starts at the bottom of one page and carries over to the other one. 488 actually is your jail. And I have 550,000 listed as jail improvements. And maybe Mr. Miller can detail that out, if it's all one project, or 2 projects, or the lot you need that one, that looks like the MO today.
By Clerk Finn.
Thank you, if you do this.
So it is 2 projects. One project is the water fire suppression system. The other one's the windows. I will tell you, I did just talk with Commissioner Luch yesterday. I believe we should hold off on the windows until we know what the water suppression system's gonna cost. That would be my recommendation.
Do you know approximately out of the 5?
So what I had budgeted previously was $100,000 for the water, so fire suppression, and $450 for windows.
Okay.
So, but I would hold off on the windows. Just until we, there's some unknowns with the fire suppression system. I'm concerned that they may require us to do the whole building to do the floor based on what we're experiencing across the street. So there may be a much greater cost for that project.
So you'd like to put this on hold moving forward?
I would put the windows on hold.
And what about the fire suppression?
No, fire suppression, I'd like to do, but I would, maybe we might want to put a more $250,000 price tag on that, just as a
About
placeholder.
2 or something like that.
Yeah.
And also keep in mind that those funds are paid out of the 488 fund. So it would be the use of those funds and not require any additional transfers. Trying to find the right page, because my things are backwards. So right now, the anticipated fund balance, for 24, we're ending, there hasn't been no expenses out of there this year. The ending fund balance is projected to be at $964,000. So these projects, I would assume, be paid from that fund balance. So no additional funding from the general fund is allocated or anticipated or even, the 550,000, so that has its own funds for its own use. Eventually, that money will be gone, and, unfortunately too, that, there's gonna be those needs for those jail repairs, so that money was set aside, in anticipation of helping to build a new jail, but that's not gonna happen, at least we can use it for the necessary repairs that have to get done.
I would like to move forward on that water suppression for sure. I don't know how the rest of the board feels. You said it's 250,000?
I'm just saying, that's a guess over there, I'm guessing.
Mr. Barber, do we have to put that in there specifically for water suppression on that motion?
We'd have to recraft it, so
Yeah.
to be specific, yes.
And we are looking for an amount, because this is the budgeted amount that
Right,
we have to get in
right,
the system.
Can the motion say up to, or does that have to be exact? I mean, we can put the 250 in, but if it's less than that.
We'll budget 250, if it comes in under budget, then it just stays in the fund balance in that fund, so.
So I think it would matter.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve up to 250,000 for the, help me, water fire suppression system. In expenses to the jail capital improvement fund 488 for the 2025 budget.
Support.
So Clerk Robinson, I'm gonna have you.
Yeah.
Read it. Motion by-
That was fast, sorry.
Motion by Commissioner. Support by Commissioner Woods. That
Read,
we,
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't get it all.
okay,
okay.
read what you got now, and I'll,
I have to approve up to 250,000 for fire suppression.
fire suppression system
Okay.
in expenses to the jail capital improvement fund 488 for the 2025 budget. Not as well crafted as Commissioner Luke usually does, but we'll stop with it.
Yeah, I don't know how we get out of this one.
How do we do this?
Did you want me to repeat it
Yes,
now?
repeat it. Now we gotta-
Okay. Motion to approve up to 250,000 for fire suppression system and expense to jail capital expense fund 488 for the 2025 budget.
Perfect.
Perfect.
Sorry to throw you right into the fire.
All right, that is the motion that was brought forward, that we crafted, that we have it. Is there any further discussion?
I have one thing. We have to bid this out. That's all I have.
I'm only thinking this, I know you're well appraised of this building, and when we keep postponing things on it because we never know what's gonna happen in the future, and $250,000. We haven't done it yet, but, it's all those needs, but.
I go by what Mr. Moore said, we could get by without windows. I'm really strong on the fire suppression in that building.
Any of that, as long, because those have been discussed for years.
I think we've been dodging a bullet for a long time without that in that jail,
Yeah.
my personal opinion.
Just,
I can't believe our liability company hasn't made us.
Yeah, it's not been an issue, with any inspections or anything, so, but,
And I'm not saying it should be, I'm just surprised that it hasn't been.
yeah, it's surprising that somebody hasn't.
I just want to get the board to be aware that is our employees in that basement. And I think that's a big concern of mine.
all right, any other discussion before we call the vote? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion's approved for
Thank you, Commissioner.
Further discussion?
Thank you.
You might as well stay there while we're doing the
I will just say up front, I will have something for you the 25th, but I believe they're all needs. I mean, there isn't anything on there that.
All right, you can sit down.
Is it Wednesday? But I would say if I had to choose things that could wait or be postponed would be the health department roof could wait and the annex parking lot could wait.
Yeah, you'll share that with us on the 20th.
I will if you want me to, yes.
That'd be nice.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome.
That took care of number 12. That was,
You thought this was gonna be that bad, we just keep right on rolling.
we got, number 13, review of the 2025 Well Funds balance sheet. Go ahead, once again.
I can't keep up with writing the notes and everything. Okay, so this is where, let's see. This is where I kind of want to let you kind of go back and forth and use this information too. So you can understand what we've worked through here. So I want to let you know then, of course, the unassigned number is up in the air right now. When you're looking at the general fund, so I'm waiting to see through the 25th, what you don't use, that number will go down if you don't allocate some of these things. The only thing I know for salary right now is I need $148,141 just to balance our regular budget. So I know we're gonna use at least that much of your reserves. And then from there, whatever decisions are made on the 25th. So what's sitting there right now, the $1,188,000 is assuming everything got approved, worst case scenario. I wanted you guys to see what your bottom line would be in the general fund. So that shows you, if you do that, $723,297 is all you have left in your unassigned. We knew it was coming, but this is, kind of keeping you more in check. And in the history, going back pre-COVID, we used to hover around 500,000. You never know what comes up during the year. If something big comes up during the year, that's your go-to. Unless you get a large amount of revenue dumped on you, and that happened very, very rarely, like for the public stuff, we had it happen. So just want to keep you in mind on that. Obviously on the 25th, I can't start off a meeting other than with a couple of things that you did to action on. We will update our numbers in the system. There's still a lot of unknowns that are going to happen on the 25th. So right now, I'm going to leave it as it is and move forward with that. Page 64, we did resolve, and I brought to your attention, these deficits have to be taken care of. Working with the court administrator, we resolved the friend of the court issue. They were able to actually, we'll start the year with $11,032. The other items in the front of the court have been taken care of. If you want to turn to page 22 and 23 of your detailed funds, I can let you know the items that they did reduce in order for that to happen. They reduced their salaries permanent because they had an employee leave, as the judge mentioned, that they did not replace. So that reduces their salary permanent and their FICA cost in 24. And what that did was produce that reduction and get them out of a deficit situation. So then we corrected the 24 budget. And the 25 budget has been corrected by the review of the co-op reimbursement program revenues. You see that at the top of that page, 22. And that shows, we had originally budgeted at 450,000, and that's been increased now to 595,000. After, looking at history and looking at what's happening in that fund today, they decided, yeah, we're too low on that budget. So it increased their revenue by 145,000. So between the correction in 24 and the correction of the CRP for 25, the majority of the court budget is now in compliance and no longer in the red. So we're all taken care of there. We will update that and present that to you on the 25th, so you can see how these problems have been taken care of.
My question is, how did they increase the revenue by $10,000?
So the CRP at 450 is low. It's this year, in 25, it's anticipated, it was a $600,000 budget, and it's anticipated we're gonna hit about 595, or a little over 595,000. So I think when that budget was put in, it was too low. Based on history, based on what's happening, they're gonna get way more than that. So that's how you would increase that revenue. So it was understated revenue.
So Clay, the victim service fund is still outstanding, correct?
Right, so on the victim service fund, that has been corrected.
That's been corrected also?
Yep, that one's been corrected. So we're actually gonna start with a fund balance of $810.
Okay,
And then so moving forward, obviously 25, it is revenue to expense equal, therefore it wipes out that deficit moving forward. So that one's all taken care of.
animal shelter?
Animal shelter is the next one. That one is going to need board action. The best that I can tell right now, they're gonna need an appropriation of 22,000. And it can happen now or it can happen later, but it has to happen before year ends, or you guys will be in violation.
And I got one more, the victim service, grant for $20,284. 255.
So the one before that, if we go in order, the equipment tech fund,
Okay,
we talked about that, you guys have to make a decision on the projects and revenue, and that will eliminate that one. So that's the next one. For the victims grant, that one has been resolved. They're gonna have to ask for an amendment, on their, grant. So we're gonna increase the revenue, on the grant to match the expenditures. Again, that was the cost of health insurance going up. So the grant, if the grant doesn't cover for it, then they're gonna have to reduce hours on the grant personnel. So the revenue is gonna be increased by 20,285. And that will match the 112,988 on the expenditure side. Therefore, there will be no budgeted deficit there.
so do you need a motion for the animal shelter for 22,000 today, or you wanna wait?
If you want to, I can prepare something for the 25th. It looks like we're gonna have a lot of them prepared for the 25th.
I guess that's the pleasure of the board.
There's a wait.
Yeah.
Wait.
for everything else.
Just saying.
It's reintroduced.
You're not gonna make it back, are you?
Actually, I will be there.
As of now.
All right, and that takes us over to the next page, or page 65 of your agenda. The child care probate court. This is one that we were pretty concerned about, but it got worked out. So if you turn to page 62 of your detailed line item, I'll kind of walk you through. There's a lot of changes that happened here that they worked through in order to shore up the revenues that were extremely low. So the chargebacks for state boards was budgeted at 300,000. Chargebacks should be around 500,000 for next year. So the courts have instructed us to change that budget to 500. So that's $200,000 extra revenue. Some of the other changes that came down due to some technical stuff in the courts, they're not going to be able to charge for the court, Social Security, the county ward, and the non-CCF funded juvenile. Those budgets are being wiped out to zero. So they're reducing it by 4,000, by 15,000, and by 3,000. So what that does to the bottom line then is that new revenue budget will be at 835,320. on the expenditure side, they were able to reduce the budget from 910,000 to 832,000. And by doing that, they reduced their supply line item by 2,500. They reduced their, I can read my notes here. The private institution has been reduced by 45,000. It was budgeted quite high, and of course, hopefully you plan on it not getting those kind of numbers, so they were able to take it down about 45,000. Also, for the other county detention, they're reducing that by $30,000. So that puts us in compliance, revenue to expenditure budget, and it takes us out of our deficit situation, so we are good to go with no general fund appropriation monies needed.
Any questions for Clint? I just have a circle back question, Clint. The 723,297 maybe on the side that we have there on the top of the page. The circle back is that anything we approve on the 25th comes off that, correct?
Well, no,
Other than
because
the yes.
the 1,188,516, if you look at your other sheet that I handed out to you, this one,
Yes.
okay, so this one shows you that all of these items, how they affect the general fund is here. So the 1,188,000 is the usage. So that 1,188,000 is gonna fluctuate what you approve, what you don't approve. Worst case scenario is you're using the 1,188,000. If you decide not to approve some of these items, it's gonna increase your unassigned fund balance carrying forward.
So in other words, it is going to affect the impact of the unassigned, depending on the approvals, other than the yeses here. It's already.
So it's assumed that you say yes to everything right now. If you say no to these things, it will increase that number.
Correct.
Yes.
But the 1,188,516 is if everything, that's worst, well, not worst case scenario, but if everything's approved.
Full expense.
Okay, thank you.
And that 1,088,000 affects the 723. Is that 723?
Yeah, so if you look at
Basically,
the column, you start with 1,911,000,
yeah.
you subtract out the 1,188,000, the balance is the 723.
Okay, so the whole 1,088,000, that's the 723. So everything you don't approve will increase that.
It will increase that.
And then looking forward, on another page, you have the transfers in and out. We have in 26, it shows we've got 2.2 million in one sheet, and the other sheet without transfers, the 26 shows 347. So I'm comparing here, whatever's in that unassigned, looking in the future based on the projections,
Gone.
it's gone. I don't know. how you come to that.
Yeah,
It's,
Correct.
yeah.
so there's the opportunity cost of making decisions and spending the money and not knowing if there's gonna be any incremental revenue. All right, so we're all on the same page, it's just,
It's not the page we want to be on.
trying to get a coffee and we're
Or
good.
maybe some whiskey.
Yeah. all right.
Mr. Barco, on that sheet that they handed out, for the one for mosquito abatement, did we do anything with that? Because I don't remember that, and for the EDC. And I don't see it on the sheet here, on our motion sheet.
Right, so the EDC one was one that was left off the sheet that was in your packet, that I said we still have to address that one.
And what about Larry?
And Larry, I mentioned, it affects his budget, it's in his budget.
Yeah.
It's, he came to you and told you what's in his budget, but the only action would be is if you want to take it out of his budget.
So we don't have to make a motion on that.
No, it's already
Okay,
included if you pass his budget as presented, it includes that. Yeah.
Let's make sure that EDC gets put on the 25th. Could we?
Yes.
Should at least consider it.
Okay.
Do you agree?
Yeah.
Thanks, Commissioner Lewis.
No problem.
Appreciate it.
Okay. Well, that was 13.
Glad, that was a lot longer than the other one.
It kind of take care of, yeah, the team.
Just saying.
Yeah, I'm done.
Questions?
Hey, but appreciated that review. Now we'll go to the next item. Number 14, Tuscaloosa County request for an RFP for control administrator services shown. The judge director.
Good morning,
Good morning.
Pretty soon after.
afternoon. So as a reminder, I did bring a copy of the request, the proposal, and then you also see what's attached to the back of it for your review.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
So when the commissioners requested an RFP, the request was for controller administrator services. Once we were creating the RFP and I started putting feelers out, I quickly discovered that companies that offer the accounting and the financial services that we were seeking do not offer any type of administrative services. So I know we discussed this at a previous meeting, but after speaking to Clerk Betty earlier in the week, we felt it was necessary for clarity purposes that even though it says controller administrator services, what we're truly seeking, what we're truly able to seek is controller services, which is what our actual RFP was for. So I want to make sure that's clear.
In the motion, it just says control.
Okay. On our website, I think it says controller administrator, so we wanted to make sure that in the minutes that it is clear that the actual RFP is for controller services, and that is the proposal that we received. So we had one company that met the requirements of the services we outlined. Based on the RFP, the decision is set to be made today regarding that, with work commencing on December 16th. Now, something I want to point out in the agreement is that it can be terminated at any time upon written request from either party. And there are quoted prices in here for your review. Those will go up in 2026 by the Consumer Price Index.
26, 25.
25, I'm sorry, yes, I said 26, I'm way ahead of myself. It is 26, so these prices are good through 2025.
Okay.
I did have them change the original contract under scope of services. They actually had this individual reporting to me. I requested a change of it to be either Board of Commissioners or Finance Committee. And then for it to be signed not by me, but for it to be signed by, you should choose to go with this, our Vice Chair. This is the only one submitted that met the requirements. There's a couple ways you could do it. The blended rate is somewhat appealing if you're looking at the rates on page 12. And if someone started on December 16th, regardless to the controller administrator position, this would give them some overlap time with that.
Okay. This is sort of a stopgap, just in case, and even though if this was approved, we still, if it's not needed, we're not compelled to move forward, correct?
Well, if we signed it today, the intent is for them to start work on December 16th, but we can terminate it at any time in writing. I did actually confirm that with Jamie Nasidis, because I wanted to make sure what I read is really what I read. I wanted someone else's opinion other than my
All
own.
right,
That
so
is true.
there's an opt-out something.
There is an opt-out, yes.
Okay, that's what I was looking for. And as far as the personnel committee working on the control administrator, what's the current thought on, and it's just conjecture, of meeting this?
I have not.
I don't know, because I keep thinking of Clint's re-retirement date.
And that kind of one of the things that, yeah, it's spend some more time with my man, who it is. Might not, never mind. I mean, this, you have a wealth of knowledge, how are you gonna get this new person? Pat Moran.
Well, here's my, this is just my thought, and I have spent a few hours talking to Carrie from Plant Moran on the phone. I believe it could, which is my thought to potentially having someone work with Playette maybe 2 days a week, starting December 16th, if it's needed. And my thought process is, regardless to how we move forward or when someone can start as controller administrator, that still allows Playette her re-retirement as she's planning. And then we would have a backup plan if the person chosen for the position needed that, the overlap in finances that Playette might not be here to provide. So that's my thought process, but it's only my thought process, and I know I've shared it with the personnel committee, but now I'm sharing it with all of you. So they are very familiar with BSNA. They're very familiar with several things that are beneficial to Tuscola County.
Share this with Playette.
Did I share it with Playette? I don't think so, yeah.
Just your numbers person here.
So your new person, they're gonna have to give notice of their old job. I mean, you're gonna have to figure that time out in.
Well, that's why I wanted this as a little bit of
It makes a lot of sense in terms of the transition. That actually, the next question is gonna have is who's gonna transition, because I sense we'd be very fortunate, since we had a very credentialed person who couldn't do it last time. Very fortunate someone's doing a similar job exactly in Government County that would be able to step in without some kind of oversight. So this would provide the other, the only problem is we're paying a period of time, double stuff. Okay. I'm
very,
following.
very, very possibly, but that is my thought process. As Commissioner Young made note of, we did, find a few really good candidates that I will be sending you their credentials via email here shortly, for your consideration. And I'll just leave that at that. But this is the backup plan in my mind to how we can transition that.
Well, I think it's more of a backup. We're being proactive on having something in place, you know. Mr. Chair, I'd like to move to accept the agreement for controller services with Plant Moran at a cost of $190 per hour, effective 12/16/24, and authorize all necessary signatures.
Support that.
Should we put in that motion that that's a blended rate? Playette, do you think?
Outlined in their contract, but maybe just so we know what you did, what
Okay,
you
at
were
the cost of
requiring.
$190 an hour at the blended rate. Can you just add that?
So the start date, I just picked it up and missed it, was December 16th.
Correct,
That
Shelley?
is correct,
Yeah.
yes.
I just read it off. Okay.
So you got that, December 16th?
Yes.
Yep.
190 per hour at blended rate.
Thank you.
So with that, motion by Commissioner Cook, supported by Commissioner Woods, to move to accept the agreement for control services with Plant Moran at a cost of $190 per hour, effective December 16th, 24. And this is to authorize all signatures as necessary.
You just missed the blended part.
Oh, blended. Okay, what did I?
Can you read it?
Reread this.
Sorry.
Yeah, you missed the blend.
Okay. Okay,
You got the date. You wanna read that?
reread it.
Okay, I'm rereading the entire motion. Is that what you're-
Please.
Okay.
Yeah.
Motion move to accept the agreement for controller services with
Plant Moran.
Plant Moran at a cost of $190 per hour at blended rate, effective 12/16/2024, and authorize all necessary signatures.
That is the motion.
Yeah, I support it.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none.
Thank you.
Good for this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you want these back? Or
I do not need them back.
Okay.
I'd actually appreciate it if you take a look at it. Review it for me.
Is there any further old business that needs to be attended to?
I think so.
Okay.
We'll add it to the 25th.
Having a potluck that day.
All right, we'll move into correspondence resolutions. We have two from Livingston County. These are interesting on both sides. I'm not sure what the first one, if everyone's read them, could make a comment. I was just interested in your thoughts. The second one is on vaccinations, which, wow, sort of interesting there as well. Is there anything that interests the board? Following up with from Tuscaloosa County? And these were just added, they weren't, there was nothing behind them, we just got them in the mail and added them. Okay, so like. All right. Doesn't sound like there's any, could there be any discussion on the correspondence at this point? Shall we move on, liaison? All right, Mr. Vaughn is absent. Next. Wrong set of. Commissioner Lewis.
The multi-county recycling is moving forward, which is a good thing. And I got under local units of government, I want to give a shout out to Galen Reiner. He's been the mayor, president of Millington for 30 years. He decided not to rerun again. I don't know why he wants to quit after 30 years, but whatever. But I just want to give him a shout out, but he's done a fantastic job. It's been really a pleasure working with him. That's all I have back to you.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Lewis. Commissioner Cook?
Nothing, sir.
Myself, being the health beats on the 25th as well, so DBA, Care DBA was canceled. And just to give you an update, they're searching for a market manager, and there's a lot of concern about the vendors. Concern that hasn't been selected yet, so the other part is that it's at the end of the terms of several of the DBA board members, and so the board has to be repopulated. So more to come on that, but that's just, it was canceled. Nothing to report on that. 7th, although here in county, Steve Vaughn was narrowly re-elected again. It was quite a story. If you haven't seen him, if you know him, have him tell it. But they cannot attend the WAC 7th only because it's on a Monday. That's what they're meeting. So I was thinking of having Renee send out an inquiry to the other counties to see if it would work out a different day. So there's an update there. Work out the board is, their meeting is over. We just met, and then we'll be meeting in April. The good news, nobody complained about the $4 million dividend. Mac Finance, we'll be meeting Friday. NACO had the meeting yesterday. It was rather interesting. It was a little bit broad related to fire suppression in the western states. A lot of it's not affecting us. More updates on the farm bill and a few other things, but nothing really germane to me after today in the world, other than continuing on the web expansion, etc. So that's all of mine. Oh, local unit government, I was over at Ellington, and it's Will's gonna tuck point their buildings, should be coming in here in the next 2 weeks. So if you've been by there, it still has support beams, but anyway, it's still on schedule to be there. In my report, Commissioner Young?
Only thing I have to report is that the personnel committee did meet last week, we interviewed 6 people for the position, and we found 43 excellent candidates. So,
Very good. Moving on to any other businesses necessary coming before the board. Any other business? Hearing or seeing none, we'll move on to extended public comment. This is open now. If anyone would like to address the board, 5-minute limitation unless the board members extend that. So is anyone who would like to address the board for extended public comment? Yes.
I'm Chuck Heinlein, I'm the current supervisor in Denmark Township. And this 5-minute increments, does that mean that I can renew it? And then 5 minutes? No, it's very short. I want to thank the commissioners for working with Denmark Township as long as I've been here, 13, going on 14 years now. So we've been through a lot in the township. We built a new township hall, we put in water districts, and those of you that were here for the last water district know a lot of the confrontations that happened on that one. But thank you for your support, and we look forward to you working with Denmark Township in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your service.
Gonna miss you. I'm sure many of them listen.
But there's that 1 or 2% that won't.
You'll soon realize they made an error.
I wish your wife's Christmas cookies already.
Gotta talk to her about that.
Could we get those in advance?
The 25th, you get to do it every day?
Anyone else in extended public comment? Anyone else? Virtual or in person? Hearing or seeing none, so let the minutes show that we did have public comment. Chuck Heinlein greeted us with his departure. And thanks. With that said, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Support.
Moved by Commissioner Cook, supported by Commissioner Roots to adjourn the meeting at 11:30. Thank you everyone for the endurance. Any further discussion? And if not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, hearing none, we are now standing adjourned. In minutes, we'll start the statutory finance. All right, I'd like to call the statutory finance committee meeting to order. It's 11:30 again. And we'll have a roll call by Clerk Robinson.
Commissioner Young?
Here.
Commissioner Barville?
Here.
Commissioner Vaughn, absent. Commissioner Lutz?
Here.
And Commissioner Cook.
Here.
You have a forum, make
All right, thank you, Clerk Robinson. Action on previous meeting minutes. Is there any corrections or additions, or is there a motion to approve the previous meeting minutes of October 25th?
Make a motion to the action on previous meeting minutes of the statutory finance, October 24th, 2024.
Support.
Been moved by Commissioner Roots, or by Commissioner Young, to approve the statutory finance meetings minutes of October 24th, 2024. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, hearing none. Statutory finance meeting minutes are approved. Moving to new business, first item is review and approval of finance report and checks of 11/14/24 finance docket. Is there any discussion, or is there a motion to approve the finance docket?
Make a motion to review and approval of financial report and checks, 11/14/24 financial docket.
Support.
Moved by Commissioner Lewis, supported by Commissioner Cook, to approve the finance report and checks of 11/14/24 financial docket as presented. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, the finance docket has been approved. Item number 2 is review and adoption of the daily report and checks from 11/14/24 daily docket. Have been presented. Is there any discussion related to that, or is there a motion to approve the daily docket as well?
I make a motion to review and adopt the daily report and checks 11/14/24 daily docket.
Support.
Been moved by Commissioner Cook, supported by Commissioner Young to approve the daily report checks at 11/14/24 daily docket as presented. Is there any further discussion? Hearing or seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, the daily docket is approved as well. Last item of the new business is item 3, review and approval of per diem report and check. Oh, there is none. Sorry. And there is no old business, which leads us down to public comment. Is there any public comment related to statutory finance this morning? Any public comments? Okay, and almost public comment. All right, with that, with the minutes show that we did not, we offered, but did not have any public comment. And the next item is to adjourn the statutory finance meeting.
I'll make that motion.
Support.
Moved by Commissioner Lewis, supported by Commissioner Cook, to adjourn the finance, statutory finance meeting at 11:35. Any further discussion? Hearing seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, we stand adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for joining us this morning. We'll be back on November 25th.